Welcome back to the Overwatch Pacific Championship English broadcast. I'm AVRL, joined with me still are Pixie and Smite as we're about to kick off, the third match of the day. It's going to be Machi Esports versus Fireball. So, gentlemen, Machi have just come off a tough loss against Blank 0-3.
Yeah.
Fireball coming in as challengers now.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one for Machi here. I mean, they are actually still favored, but look, Fireball is a bit of an odd team, and you can now see Fireball on your screens here, a team with the heart of a lion and a lifetime ban from the zoo.
Oh my, I don't know, but yeah, all right, cool. The thing about Fireball is that they have improved a huge amount ever since their first few weeks of performance. The thing is though, Machi ended up overtaking them somewhere between the second and the third round robin. This is the night for Fireball to prove that they are the better team.
Of course, it's a big ask for Fireball, and I want to see how far Fireball can take this, because this is a team where previously we have watched them and we said, look, they look like a team that have improved sort of proportionately as much as Machi have. But of course, Machi is sitting fairly high up on standings currently, just trailing Hong Kong Attitude by 2 losses, but Hong Kong Attitude are yet to have played any games so far in here at Machi. Of course, we've already seen them previously, and one more time, they're here to now take a win tonight.
You know what, I'm going to go right out and say it. I don't just want to see how far Fireball can go. I actually want to see them win this. I really do want to see them win this game, and it would be potentially a deserved win.
Going to have a couple of words from 2 coaches. We have Zin on the left and Cassis on the right.
ฝากเนื้อฝากตัวน้องใหม่ด้วยนะครับผม
好，我突然觉得我会泰语了，没有啦，他之前就有翻译给我听了，就说他是新加入的成员，请好好的照顾他，他是教练。对对对。
Please
好，
look
那
after
想请
me.
问一下 MAT 有没有什么回应呢？
And Cassis.
就听说 Fireball 今天有派出新人了，那我们不会大意，全力以赴，谢谢。
对他们真的有新的成员，要好好小心应战。
Something new about Fireball coming into tonight, so looking forward to that, and hopefully have a very good game as well. So I'm not too sure. I don't get the.
Is that like, please don't hurt me?
Yeah, I think that's more like a closer to a please don't hurt me, but maybe please look after
me. Like he's like clutching to him, like Fireball. Yeah, look, they're such a cool team. That's really where this comes from. Like, that's why I want them to be able to pick up a win here, because they're always so entertaining to watch. They're such a likable team. They're such a likable group of guys. I feel like they've had a really compelling journey throughout this tournament. And even when they've kind of struggled here, like, their losses are entertaining. They're such a fantastically cool team. You almost want them to win these kinds of matches, especially when I mean, quote unquote, it doesn't matter. I mean, the standings still do matter in terms of how much the prize pool these teams get, sure, but none of these teams are making playoffs anymore. That's just a fact, and I would love to see if Fireball can actually get some wins out in matches like this in the final round robin.
And it's not like they're just a funny team that at the end of the day aren't showing any sort of performance. They're a funny team that's also a very good team. It just so happens that, unfortunately for them, they've barely kind of managed to scrape through from the bottom. They've now set a very clear difference between where they're standing and where Detonator Gold and Sun Sister are, but there is still that gap. You see Machi and Fireball, 4-win difference. There's also a 4-win difference between Fireball and Detonator Gold as well. So Fireball, they want to be able to break through and join the likes of Hong Kong Attitude and Machi now.
So Fireball sitting on 7 wins. 6 of those 7 wins are against Detonator Gold and Sun Sister. The 7th win was actually against Machi in the very first round robin. And now that is ancient history at this point, because of course Machi improved a massive amount. They beat Flash Wolves in the second round robin, which really boosted them up in the points, and now they're contending for the 4th place spot right now. Fireball, however, despite having a bit of a drop during the 2nd and 3rd round robin, near the end of the 3rd round robin, they have actually started to improve. They've actually started taking it to some of the better teams, giving even Hong Kong Attitude a run for their money. I'd say Fireball have a real shot at winning the series.
All right, we've got a new player on our hands, T2What V3, version number 3, so not even the first 2 versions. They refined this guy to the 3rd, and with that change up, I do believe, I'm trying to figure out who's actually gone, it does look like Zelfix is off the roster.
Which is a shame. He was voted one of the most attractive men of the OPC.
Maybe Zelfix version 3 would make it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. He's still just running an old version of the software. Here is Machi, though. You, of course, saw them earlier tonight as well. No changes there in the lineup.
So, with... I'm not even going to be able to remember to pronounce this guy's
just
name.
Go for it. Just try it. Just give me the version you think it is.
T2What version 3? Was that close?
That's pretty good. That's pretty close, but that's pretty much it.
But with him coming on, he was listed as a tank player, and Rocket, who you just saw on your screen right now, at the start of the OPC was
Zin
actually...
playing? Zin is playing. That is why he said, please go easy on me.
Oh
Please
my
look up.
All right,
Oh,
so
maybe
Hey,
not.
what? Right. That was unexpected to say the least. Nice. Well, that's one way to give a player an introduction, and yeah, they don't even know what Pixie could really bring to the table because they don't have that
He
relevant
is
data.
actually
It's the
listed
first
as
time we're seeing
support.
it.
he was on the other thing. He was listed as
was
tank,
a-
so we don't know just yet.
There has been a bit of. I mean, it's hard to actually kind of pin it down to those particular roles because of how some of these players flex. Some flex between tank and support. Some are flexing into DPS when they run the Sombra. Some of the supports are the ones who pick up Soldier when they do triple DPS. I mean, those particular monikers are a little bit harder to go off right now, but I can see where you're going with the tank point there. That's quite interesting with regards to Rocket, because they did only have that one option with the tank, and it was hurting them a little bit.
What are they playing for?
And now, I don't know what they're quite playing for. Maybe.
That was a really confusing game of papers.
Puto wins
Well,
anyway.
we couldn't see half of it.
Yeah.
This is now the usual suspects in the Fireball roster. We've had now the one roster change, which by the way is happening very late into, I would say, the season here. Ninth as well, and Kurlos probably on the right side of him. So what do we think of that, guys? Because we're in the 4th round robin, and only finally now we have this brand new player out of nowhere.
So, I mean, yeah, like I was saying with the tank point, it could say that Rocket is. Oh my gosh, Kurlos.
Oh,
That's
okay.
just. Oh god. Is
I
he
know
okay?
it's just a trick, but like, oh.
If he throws
Anyway.
if he throws a grenade on himself, he instantly heals up. So that's fine.
That's
Stop
fair
doing that.
enough. Yeah, cool. But back to Rocket, right? So he was originally playing support. In fact, listed on the main thing as support. So it could show that he's going back to support, and Titawat is actually going to be the tank player. But I'd say they'd be better off just leaving Rocket on that main tank player. He's been on it the most consistently, and that's what the team roster is used to playing
It
with.
really depends what Titawat plays, because if Titawat is a tank, then of course Rocket should go in support. If not, then he should be the support, and Rocket should stay on the main tank role. We have a missing player for Machi Esports. Oh, it's
Right. It's the plush is their player. Definitely not the part of Rescue that is holding the plush. It is the plushie. I thought for a minute they just had a ghost, but this is better.
yeah. What he also could have done is, there we go. Yeah, of course
He
it
came
is
back.
Restia.
Oh, what? Where did he come from?
A new player on Machi lineup as well. It is of course the plushie going to be filling in for Restia tonight.
Yeah, and this is a really late substitution in the tournament. I find this quite interesting. We didn't actually quite
Plushie
get to see
version 3.
didn't actually quite get to see the plushie's role there, but I have a feeling he may be replacing Restia.
Well, it's actually bringing it more in line because he's been a 7th member on the team for the last few weeks. So now,
Ryan's the 8th.
now Machi has been brought in line. They can't have 7 players on at a time, so Plushie's replacing Restia.
Yeah, they're just getting rid of the guy.
Well,
Yeah,
this
7th player though, Rai would be 8. That would be rough for the guy.
Nunez is kind of
having
falling asleep a little
having
bit
a
here.
nap. I don't know. Maybe it's like Nun ZZ, so he was just trying to get the ZZs there.
Imagine if we've been pronouncing it wrong the whole time. It's just nuns.
Well, we may have very well been pronouncing a few of them wrong. Who knows? Titawat could be the newest addition to that as well. That we could just be pronouncing wrong.
It's like Titawat.
Yeah. Well, actually, the alternate name for DC1 is actually D-Crown. I think a lot of the
D-Crown.
Well,
If it wasn't to be D-Crown, he ought to spell it as D-Crown.
well, that's the
just by
thing. That's the thing. It's cool to misspell it. I don't know. So there it is.
D-Crown's a pretty cool name, though.
Yeah, D-Crown would be, D-Crown is cool. Not that DCL1 is a terrible name, mind you, but yeah, D-Crown would be pretty great. But yeah, if you want that to be your name, you do need to actually write that as your name. Just remember that one, folks.
All right, little tip from Pixie, quotes from Pixie, write that one down. But I do want to discuss the new substitution for Fireball. I know we don't have any information on this, but what does it really mean for Fireball this late into the tournament? Can they now, they're going to just, it's obviously a bit of a new Fireball,
Yeah.
but results-wise, is this going to be something that could just really give them wins where they haven't gotten them before?
Yeah.
And kind of, it's also late enough where even if they do get those wins, does it really mean enough?
See, that's the thing. I mean, certainly, it will and it won't. I even think, actually, mathematically, it would be pretty hard for them to even upset either Machi or Hong Kong Attitude. They can't even really grab that 4th or 5th place spot right now. They're pretty much set with where they are, just with how the math of the standing works out. Like, they would have to be, taking games off AHQ and flash rolls and all that jazz later on for them to actually be able to steal a 5th place spot right now. But the thing is, actually, Fireball have kind of been on the up and a bit. We talked about, especially at the start of the tournament, Fireball were kind of the Aputo show, and much like the teams that were kind of built around these, great superstar players like AHQ with Dizzy and all that jazz, it did feel like Fireball with that, but with the weakness that if they did lose a Puto, they really did seem to crumble, whereas teams like HQ didn't have that weakness if they straight up lost Dizzy. Yeah. And then they've started to fix that up. That's been the big move in the last couple of weeks. It doesn't feel like Fireball is just a Puto and 5 guys. It feels like they are this solid team of 6 members who are all on the same page. They're moving together, and they are leveraging the great work they can get out of a Puto. And honestly, maybe just bringing in T2Watt is the last thing they need to kind of clean up, tighten those few screws that were still a little bit loose, having fixed up the major bulk of their problems so that they can pick up some wins.
And that's the guy, you know, getting the shoulder rub because he needs to carry a bit of the weight of the team himself as well. NZ&I has been the other factor in the Fireball
and
squad
a chin rub,
that
apparently.
has really stepped up.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of like being a bit loose, that really loosens you up, right? Getting a massage.
Okay, that's
right?
where you were going with that.
Yes,
right,
that's
sure,
what I was
yeah.
going with that. That's
I thought you were going to say a Puto was a handsy man or something like that.
Puto is a handsome man, for sure.
This is not
I
scripted.
would describe him as adorable, personally.
Has he been listed in the Blizzard top 5 cutest OPC players?
Blizzard top
don't
5. You
know.
mean the OPC top 5?
The
Well,
Blizzard,
well, no, no,
Blizzard
it's-
top 5.
Is that the whole of the...
Jeff himself wrote the list. It looked at all the players like, yeah, I'm a real fan of that Zalfix guy.
The list is rated by the Taiwan Blizzard employees, so
It is. It is.
that's where the Blizzard part of it comes from. So
Well, fair enough. Let's see.
Have any of us actually seen that
Oh
list?
boy. Let's see if you know, there's a couple of top 5 members in there. Let's see if Fireball themselves can break into a top 5 for a totally different list, and that is the leaderboard for the OPC itself, and that's kind of what we're staring at here. That's kind of their goal. If they're going to make a substitution this late in the tournament, they're obviously looking for wins. They're obviously looking to really round off those edges where they felt Zalfix kind of wasn't able to fill in the role that they wanted.
Yeah, the thing with the standings, just by the way, so it's fairly safe to assume that Machi will beat Detonator Gold and Sun Sister. It's fairly safe to assume Fireball will lose to Flash Wolves, Blank, and AHQ. The only question mark in that potentially would be picking up a win against AHQ. And assuming all of that happens, even then, they can't actually surpass Machi right now.
Yep.
But what they can do is beat them in a game.
Right, well, we have the first map pick already, home side from Fireball. They have chosen Lijiang Tower. Not super surprising, it's just one of those maps
Well,
that Fireball
no,
go
Ilios.
for. Yeah, well, I mean, they've sort of dropped off Ilios
one of
now.
two.
They used to go there, now they kind of don't.
Yeah.
So Lijiang kind of a standard pick there. Fireball on the home side, of course, get map picks 1, 3, and 5. So that is the Control, Assault, and the Hybrid at the end. If we make it there, Machi will get maps 2 and 4, Hybrid and Escort, and also the starting sides.
Machi do quite like Lijiang Tower as well. They often pick it quite a bit themselves. So this is, we talk about so much, this is very much a level playing field map for both of them. Even though it has been Fireball's pick and they haven't gone for Ilios, they've gone for this over that. Yeah. It's not because they're just, you know, incredibly better at this than they are at Ilios or anything like that. Like, they're not necessarily favored or unfavored or anything. It's just flat even.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Call a spade a spade.
I think Lijiang Tower is one of the maps out of Control probably the most that really does revolve around the Tracer players on both sides. Because when you go to things like Ilios and Nepal, things like Widowmaker can crop up, and so that doesn't really come into play as much on Lijiang Tower. The most variation you're really going to see is if a Reinhardt composition comes out onto Control Center. I don't believe Fireball are going to pull that out, and even Machi, I think it's still just going to stick to their 2-2-2 with a Winston lineup. So Tracers are really going to be where it's at, and something that happens quite often is the Zenyatta players are targeted very heavily by these Tracer players, and even the Winstons as well. So I think Fireball and NZ&R specifically on that Tracer have a real shot at really bringing it to Machi on Lijiang Tower.
One thing we may see though here, this is always such a joy, is we may get a chance to see a Puto on that McCree. We're possibly going to see it on Control Center. And one part is just the DPS, one part is the sort of anti-tracer because of that flashbang, you know, your flashbang headshot tracer is gone. So that is a potential thing, sure. I just like seeing his...
There are some very good players on the Fireball side, of course, and just a little bit of a tidbit here is that 3 of the Fireball members are actually in the Thai World Cup team that got announced somewhat recently. So you got Kurlos, NZ&R, and Oputo who have made that team. So 3 of the best players in Thailand playing on Team Fireball, and deservedly so. These are the 3 players I would probably say are the standout ones on the Fireball squad, and are the ones really carrying the majority of the weight of the team so far as well.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a fair assessment, especially in that NZ&R and Kurlos. Both have really, really pushed the threshold. They've both really bettered themselves as players. They've bettered how they play within teams. I mean, this team as it is has come a long way. It's almost a shame they couldn't go even further than what they have come, but I mean, heck, maybe they actually can. This is still the opportunity to do that. Picking up a win here would be huge, and maybe even picking up a win against Hong Kong Attitude.
Absolutely, and that should be their goal for the remainder of this round robin, as well as solidifying their position against Detonator Gold and Sunsister as well. Making sure they continue to pick up wins against those two teams. We're going to see Detonator Gold later on, but right now, Machi versus Fireball. This is going to be very interesting in a number of ways. And Tita, what is he on? He is
It
the
is
main
Winston.
tank.
So that puts Rocket back onto the healing spot. That puts him back onto Lucio. And that was one of the things, that the swap for Rocket onto the Winston early gave them a little bit of legs. They were able to start picking up some wins, but it was very clear even that entire time that something wasn't quite sitting right. So maybe Tita, what is the answer?
It felt like a band-aid solution, right? You're putting your support player in a tank and then you're changing up your roles. Now we have supposedly the best version of Fireball. Kurlos takes an early fall though, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, he does, yeah. And NZNR couldn't quite close out the members. He'd got low on the Machi side of things. So Machi not going to try and push forward onto this, but Fireball aren't giving up that ground quite so easily. They're sticking with Knight on this Diva, and Tita is really holding its ground here. It's actually been enough time now for the members to get back in these healers, but NZNR getting picked off now should mean Machi cap this point over, and Fireball do give them the space.
Yeah, absolutely. And what Fireball weren't able to do was convert any sort of kills over. They weren't able to get the counter trades, rather. That would have really helped them stay in the fight because they lost one member. Maybe they stick around, losing the second member, NZNR. That's an early fallout, and now it has to be a recontest.
It does, but actually good on them for not overcommitting to that one and now moving in for the counter attack. They're actually set up fairly nice on this one. Apudo on this Genji looking to get some good pressure on the backside along with NZNR. Not quite catching the kills through just yet, and they're really hunting for these picks. They catch No Talk's mech, that's good, and it forces out the sound barrier. They have now a big window. They may need to commit some ultimates of their own. There we go. NZNR catches Rescue with the pulse bomb, and they commit themselves with this Transcendence. There we go. Apudo able to get canned. That's really what they needed. The open up here from Nonez. Can't really seem to find much. They finally close out No Talk, and Fireball actually do look poised to take this even though they lose Kurlos.
Yeah, they're very far ahead, and what the late Transcendence from Kiyomi does save the remainder of the members, but not when they really need it. They really need to defend against Apudo's Dragon Blade. Machi is still in this, they still have ultimates, they can still stall out as well, but the cap actually went over in the meantime.
Yeah, now Tito Watt's actually really pressuring out Nona. Is going to go ahead and dive onto him after the fact as well with that ultimate run out. Doesn't quite close out the kill, unfortunately, ends up too deep, loses life for it, but they do trade back on a DCR1, and it's very back and forth now, but with Nona still alive, they're able to just pump out a little bit more damage. Fireball hadn't quite reset themselves after winning that fight. Now Machi actually well poised to cap this one straight back off them.
And it looked like all Machi needed to do was back off a little bit, wait for respawns while they were backing up. Yes, the cap went over, but they were better reinforced and they could come in as a team. Fireball was still struggling to keep their ground going. Tita Watt couldn't secure the kill onto Nonez, and then eventually Machi overpowered Fireball. We're in this position where Machi are once again on the cap, in control, and ready to defend.
Yeah, and frankly, they have the ultimates in their pocket as well, the self-destruct and the primal rage. Tita Watt actually, had he closed out the kill on Nonez with the primal rage, that would have been a very different story last fight, so I can appreciate why he used that ultimate, but not having that stalling tool to keep the legs in the fight is really going to hurt them, especially if they lose Tita Watt on top of it, and they are just going to back off. I think rightfully so. They did at least pull the primal rage out of DCR1, and they are able to successfully retreat.
And there's maybe even an argument there where DCR1 didn't have to use the primal rage. Either way, Machi keep control of this cap. They're about to hit up to the 90%. Should be time for Fireball to now strike. If they have ultimates, which they do, they should be looking to use just about everything here as we hit that overtime. Pulse bomb misses.
Both pulse bombs have actually missed. His cans already went a little bit wide. That's the first rounded defensive ultimates used by Machi. Fireball now only going to commit their sound barrier. It's the last thing to be committed as Nonez gets picked out. Apudo getting all over this one, and they were able to last out those defensive ultimates from Machi. Absolutely cleaned the floor with that. Very nicely played by Fireball. Came into it with even ultimates and absolutely won that fight convincingly.
Yeah, I think Apudo was the X factor there. Dragon Blade was very successful. You almost wanted to see that out of Calman a little bit earlier today as well, but Apudo, fantastic Genji player. You said maybe he was even going to bring the McCree out. It's not going to be the case because
he doesn't need it.
He just is one of the best Genji players of the tournament, and it really shows.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best DPSs of the whole tournament as well. That's really the fantastic thing about him. Here's Machi now committing with the self-destruct burst. It forces his positioning, and they make good use of that. They pick Kurlos. That's omnicide there, if you will, but the re-aggression now from Fireball as they're able to take out DCR1 and Kiyomi. Good work for them as they do pick up Restia as well, and they're able to lock down this
That's a
point.
good kill.
Despite losing Rocket Knight, that's just barely able to keep the mech. Titawat barely keeps his life. Enzo and just go down to the back end of it, but holding on, that was the hardest defense to hold for. Now Fireball had to hold it one more time.
And Apuro getting all these late picks. First one on Nones, then secures one on Kant as well. This is delaying a lot of time that Machi need to get back in this fight. Pretty soon we're going to head into overtime in the reverse section for Fireball as well. And this fight, this game actually has gotten very, very close.
It absolutely has. DCR1 trying to get aggressive onto the side. He's spotted out Apudo, but he's got to pop the ultimate there lest he loses his life, and that means he's now kind of coming onto the point, just sort of trying to displace. Does force out the Transcendence, but there's still plenty of ultimates here in the pocket of Fireball, sorry. Apudo is barely able to catch out Nones at the back end of that. Was a little bit hard, but he closed it out. That's what matters. Titawat about to lose his life here, but they should be able to get some trade backs here. Fireball still in control of this fight, all things considered, but losing Rocket Major, swaying the tide there. Never mind, they pick DCR1, still trying to get rid of Kant. The sound barrier is now there for Machi, gives them some room to play with as None is able to recommit to the fight now. Apudo forced back, and it looks like it will be a cap back through for Machi. Let's see if Fireball can now take the overtime.
Fireball still waiting for a couple of respawners. Curlis ins and out down makes it really difficult for Fireball to contest. A last minute sound barrier might just be enough for Fireball to just stall it out for a bit longer, but unless they get the trades in, I think Machi are going to take this.
Unfortunately, Apudo didn't die earlier. He had to go back and find a health pack. He didn't actually get to stick around as ideally with enough health. If he had died, he would have actually just been able to respawn and come back to the point. There would have been just enough time held on for. And despite the sound barrier, the tactical visor was just enough to close out on Rocket and Titawat. But I'm going to say it, first point already went very, very close. I actually think Fireball were the better team in terms of executing most of those fights. And I feel like when they lost them, it was because they mis-executed.
Now this is kind of going back into old school Fireball a bit, but where Fireball really won and got their big victories was off of Apudo, specifically during Dragon Blades and just kind of in general. So there is a little bit of the Apudo factor still in this, and you still got to question just a little bit if Apudo isn't turning up the heat for Fireball. What's going on for that team? Curlis is still getting picked out rather early. I do still think he's a rather good support player, but unfortunately one of the easier ones to kill, especially when you consider that Restia and Kiyomi do not nearly have those kind of death rates.
I will say though, already just based off that performance, we are seeing much more consistency out of Titawat than we were with Rocket on the Winston. And maybe that's just enough to kind of overcome this difference here. Now actually Fireball very well positioned, have been the ones to swing around onto this point. Kind of won that first little bit of positional jostling. No kills coming through either way just yet, but Machi are the ones with the taller order here. They have to attack onto the point.
And DCR1's already on half, so that makes it just a little bit more difficult. Machi are going to cap this one up. Fireball to cap this one up. Machi don't actually contest very soon. Early pulse bomb
Great
as well.
pulse bomb, and he sticks DCR1 with it too. That was phenomenal. Great land there, and they just go straight onto the attack with that pop can, pop the mech, close out on no talk as well. And they're even going to go hunter killer onto these back liners there. NZ and R happy to take out Kiyomi. They're going to get Restia. The only one who got away with his life at the end of all that was Nones.
This is a dominant display in the opening round of Night Market for Fireball as well. Just finds the opening, denies all area against Machi. And such an early pulse bomb. I mean, he got the first ultimate in the game among 12 players. Ken has his pulse bomb now, but the fight's already lost, and this has to be a retake now for Machi. And if they want to get in there, 30% already gone.
Very early commit with the sound barrier. Curlis does put the Transcendence out, but that just gives them the space to kind of go aggressive despite the sound barrier. As all Fireball really wants it, and they convert it straight into kills. Machi have to take another one on the chin, and now the cap is going to go over 50% for Fireball.
There's still a lot of players. This is the big problem for Machi, is every single one of these fights, if it goes into Fireball's favor, it goes heavily in Fireball's favor. There's been no fights where Machi have only lost a couple members. It's been 3, 4, 5, even a whole team wipe in there as well. 2 ultimates used by Fireball pretty much every single time. A second pulse bomb before Kant has even used one.
That got eaten as well. That was really unfortunate, the one out of Kant. So None is trying to open up with this tactical visor, is not really finding anything. Titawat was just barely able to retreat, which is good news for them. But now they're starting to convert the kills. Was able to pick Rocket as well as Curlis. Ninth able to swing some back though, and that was Kant and DCR1. Those are much more impactful than those 2 healers being out of the picture. Titawat still took a long time to go down there. Good self-destruct at the point though will catch Apudo, and this is finally the space for Machi to actually get on and get a cap of their own. But Fireball can afford to kind of stall this one out with Rocket and run this one up over 90%. That is exactly what is going to happen, and now Fireball, they still have plenty of time to cap this one through and close it.
And a very good decision making there by Fireball as well. Even getting a couple of kills at the end, this is going to make them retaking just a little bit easier, as much you also have to wait for respawn. So getting to 90% was extremely important for Fireball. Getting towards anything more than this is kind of negligible. So this is about the stage where when Fireball win one fight here, they're poised to just take the entire round, and they have a couple of ultimates that can do that. The big one they got to get past is DCL1's Primal Rage, which will stall out for Machi for a decent long time.
Oh, they're already onto the point as well. Machi, are they going to let that one go straight over? They nearly did. That was very, very questionable for a moment there. And now they do have to really get on with the account. Yeah, they actually did end up letting it go over, and Apudo opening up. He's already found Nonez. The only one able to do anything on this point here is DCR1. No Talk has lost the mech. NZNR is still having free reign over this one. Machi have yet to properly answer. Kant finally has a pulse bomb. It goes wide, and he dies. And then Doomfist appeared and attacked the airport. Fireball are going to even up the score.
Poor airport as well. They still never fixed that one up, and so far, Fireball have fixed up the scoreline 1-1. I gotta say, it's a little bit too early to really judge how good the substitution is, but what I can tell from the lineup overall and their playstyle is extremely good, well-timed aggression. They also know when to back off when they need to back off. This is a Fireball that is unrelenting. This is the kind of Fireball that can get an entire match win. Not just one match, but a match win off of Machi now, because Machi, like we saw against Blank, they can be quite passive. They can just sit back when they don't need to, but Fireball not like that.
And they are now, with that one map pick up, on the road to doing that. It's only even up the score. They're not ahead yet. It's only even. It is a long road, but they are on it.
It's a good road as well. I mean, for Fireball, this is kind of the best we've seen. It almost looks like Round Robin 4 is the best. Every single version of team is just leveled up here.
It's making for very exciting play, if nothing else. And I tell you, it is making a little bit more than that. Good pick already onto DCR1 means that this Panadol pair up in the air is not going to have too much free reign over this. At some point, they have to try and get aggressive on the point. They can't rely on Kant and DCR1 to do that, and this is going to have to go over to Fireball.
We definitely can't rely on Kant because he got taken out super early. Discord Orbit ends up flanking onto him as well. I don't even see Machi contesting this early cap out. Machi just have to back off once again. They're waiting for something to happen with this pharmacy combo in the sky. And I gotta say, Fireball playing indoors, away from the open areas, this is what they need to be doing.
Yeah, and now they're actually going to go ahead and try and commit to the point itself. This is probably the most tenuous moment for Machi here. DCR1 already focused out, just barely able to scrape out with his life. But with that, Fireball are able to kind of reposition themselves. Tito gets back into the point. He's, not quite going to be fine. That is a little unfortunate. And that could tip the scales here for Machi if they can convert into a couple more kills. But they do need to watch for Apudo. He could deflect this rocket barrage if they're not careful. And as if it doesn't get eaten, that's going to be the open out with the ultimate onto him. The rocket barrage still not committed because they're not converting the kills. And then Apudo gets taken out as well. So Machi, they will be able to secure this point.
There was unfortunately a lot of damage coming up from Apudo, but nothing getting actual kills. He took a swing of the blade on just about every single member, but none of those members actually went down. One of them was known as, one of them was Restia. Everybody is still alive. And now Machi, they got the cap over. They got it a lot earlier than they did on Night Market, so this is suddenly a lot playable for them as well.
There's a good tempo res as well out of Kiyomi. A good pickup onto Kurlos as well, and now Machi have kind of stopped up this one from Fireball before it's already started.
And that's unfortunate because, like I said, Kurlos, for some reason, just gets picked out. He's almost like the Zondor of his team. He's incredibly good, he's incredibly valuable, but somehow he dies super early in these fights.
I will not waste such a
Yeah, somehow indeed. NZNR is trying to do as much work as humanly possible, and he really is pulling it off so far. You know, it's not just the Apudo show tonight, I feel, but they are still having to aggress back onto this point. It is a little bit tricky. Committing in with this Transcendence, this is their window to convert kills out. They actually do get themselves set up on the point again. Machi not quite contesting it. Sound barrier doesn't quite catch NZNR. He has to recall to keep his life there. Known as a bit too deep, barely able to get out with his life, but he can't commit that rocket barrage just yet, not safely at least, as the ult committed from No Talk finds nothing, doesn't even make enough space, and this time Known as commits too far. Kiyomi gets picked out as well, so the res can't even come through. They train down DCR1, and Fireball kind of holds steady through the aggression of Machi as they move in to retake the point.
It's difficult this time because they don't just cap it out under Machi's noses. In fact, Kiyomi's got a res to come in with this as well. So there's an opportunity. Machi might actually be able to hold on to this. They're not going to commit anything.
Oh,
Well,
they commit
actually,
the
they do. They do, but the
But they
cap's gone
committed
over.
late. Yeah, the cap's already gone over. No Talk commits a second self-destruct. They aren't even getting kills. They're finally going to come in with this rocket barrage, but it's only found rocket. They do catch a Pudo in this, but Nonez is now finding himself inside the point. That is not an ideal spot for him. Unfortunately, Ninth does lose his mech, but Nonez, he knows a bad situation when he sees one. He backs out anyway, so Machi threw all of that into the point and didn't even take it back anyway.
Honestly, that was awfully timed by Machi. They should not have committed that res
dear.
into there. There's still kills flooding in from the Fireball
DCR1's all
side.
alone here.
It is, and we've got 80% now on the Fireball side. Every single member, well, 2 of the members that got res were just immediately killed anyway. This is now Machi playing super aggressive, but unfortunately, the timing is all off.
Yeah, it's a sound barrier as well. Kiyomi's still in there. Look, maybe they're going to get their members in and regroup, but look, they didn't even need to do it then. They could have backed out and gone for it when it was safer, and Fireball are all still here anyway. They've got Ninth back into the mech. They're going to commit to this fight, and the only thing that Machi really had to go off there was that pulse bomb. Luckily, they converted it into a kill onto NZNR, and they may just be able to catch this one back, but they did this in the most dangerous way possible.
It was extremely risky, and Fireball nearly held on to the sound barrier, kept Fireball alive for a decent amount of time. Unfortunately, Fireball couldn't collect any kills. Machi then eventually overpowered Fireball, so that was all it took. Now the res is back into play, so for Fireball, this gets a little bit dangerous. They can commit really hard here. They don't actually have enough ultimates anyway, but they're going to have to just try.
In a sense, luckily for Machi, Fireball didn't actually have any further ultimates to commit to that themselves after that sound barrier was out from them. But here's the very early commit by them, Kurlos on with the Transcendence, as they do get the damage through. That's the first one out there. Apudo, they need to kill out Kiyomi. He's going to come back in with the res. In fact, here he goes. That's a big tempo res. And now Fireball, once again, a little bit lean for ultimates. All they're really going to have is a pulse bomb in a moment and ultimate out from T1. But the rocket barrage, it doesn't find anything. Fireball have committed no crimes. They are not deserving of that justice. Ninth will get popped out of the mech before the self-destruct comes up by the looks of things. But T1 with the Primal Rage able to stall. It is still Machi converting the kills. There we go. Apudo, here we go, starting to turn it back on, catching Nonez. He will go down to the aggression, and it's still really anyone's fight here.
Super even. Pulse Bomb could make the difference. Can't killing Inzanite, I think, may just make the difference now. Kurlos, even onto the soldier. Everyone's just trying to get back into the cart, onto the actual point itself. There's no cart, excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh no, that'd be interesting.
Tell you what, the difference has been Rocket was still stuck onto T1. Now Fireball are able to just barely regroup because neither of these two tanks, No Talk and T1, wanted to commit to one another. So now Fireball actually come back in with these round of respawns. Machi still convert the kills. Kurlos too deep. Ninth found nothing with the self-destruct, and it looks like Machi are going to hold on because now their respawns are coming through. Their kills are coming up, all Fireball, and they will actually get that one through. But by Jove, that could have gone either way at so many points, and I do not think Machi played that safely.
Well, they didn't. They took a big risk and ended up getting a decent payout. But you're right. That could have very much gone over to Fireball's favor. A few small differences there, a few individual decision-making choices just made differently could have really changed the result of that entire game on Gardens, I'd probably say. 99-99 with a super protracted fight at the end, which, I mean, for Fireball, they had a super great run. They played into the res, they killed 4 members, 4 came back. They ended up winning a second fight, but they just couldn't secure it at the end, even after beating up the res.
I feel like Fireball played that far cleaner, and like I said, Machi took a very unnecessary risk. They could have actually achieved the exact same thing with safe play. I mean, it paid off, I suppose. They can at least take that one away. But once again, Fireball already kind of set up on this point. They do pop Ninth's mech this time, so it's already looking a little bit better for Machi as they go on the aggressive here. Fireball forced backwards a little bit, not really getting any of these return kills in either as they catch T1 now. And Machi, they look to be the ones set up on this point, unlike last time.
And I really like this newfound aggression coming out from Machi. This is what they needed the last time on night markets. When we saw them on night markets, they were actually held up at that sort of entrance. They were unwilling to sort of go and couldn't find an opening. This time, they just break down the doors and they get the victory.
Yeah, now Fireball are going to have to kind of break out of this spawn. They are actually doing a great job of it. They've separated off Kiyomi on the side. That's a really big one for them. They'd force back DCR1 as well. Now going aggressive on him. They close it out, and Machi gets punished.
Nice help, Pixie.
They've mispositioned. They went a little bit too far forward and didn't actually kettle in Fireball the way you need to, and they just give up the point straight away.
Good retake coming out from Fireball. Didn't have ults there either, so well-timed fight. I mean, they sort of got in there before Machi had ults to use themselves. That was a really important fight for Fireball because it resets Machi's tempo. It really goes either way. Now, both teams looking fairly even after one fight win each.
And Zedinar, good catch on Tsukiyomi and Apudo already on the aggressive. This is what Machi failed to do just a moment ago. Stop up the enemy team before they can even get out to this courtyard.
And now Machi is sitting on a decent number of ultimates. Their Fireball, unfortunately, do not have Zedinar. The pulse bomb hit, it connected, it gave them another fight win, but Machi got out with a decent amount of members, so they didn't have to cop too many losses now. Expect Machi to get fairly aggressive here with their advantage.
There they go for it. Fireball, they're just going to try and wait and this one out. Wow, good aggression by T2 to actually stop up Nonez. Apudo goes big with the Dragon Blade now, trying to catch someone. Unfortunately, has to put it away, but with Nonez not being there now, Machi have actually committed most of the ultimates they had racked up. They haven't really got much for it just yet either, and Fireball is still keeping them caught up in their base. They'll hold on to that fight. That was very well navigated.
It is, but the fight does not end just yet. Zedinar going down, so it can actually go down to Zedinar rather. Do get a trade onto the other way, so without a tank for Fireball, maybe there's an opening for Machi that they can capitalize on. Still looking for that opening though.
Yeah, they seem to want to try, but actually DCR1 just went too deep for it. He did find Apudo, but he had to use his ultimate. Good stick onto Nonez, kind of evens up the scoreboard with that one, and he can't close down the supports. Now he's just stuck off to the side. He's all alone. He has got his... Is that even his demon? There we go. It actually luckily was. I thought it was Knight for a moment. I'm like, what is Knight not... Why is he not shooting it? But they do start to swing back here just barely. But once again, I feel like that was quite overextended for a moment by them. They look to close out Knight's mech here and will be able to pick up T1. Apudo already forced out of the fight off to the side. They're able to close out the kill on him as well there. Good aggression by No Talk. And Machi will get the cap back over, but not until Fireball have run down the clock completely.
Absolutely, get the recap over, but it is into overtime, so they got it at the very last moment. Fireball played it very well to keep it until 99%. Machi, they're trying to find a few moments, and sometimes they get them. A lot of the times they're actually not. Fireball are doing a decent job of keeping the lead. This is one of the few times they've actually lost it onto night markets. Machi have defensive ultimates to keep this one alive. I don't believe Fireball should be able to get this one.
They nearly let the cap go through again. They're going to use this Transcendence to steer out the sound barriers. They open up with this one, using their own sound barrier now as they do pick up Nonez. They're converting all the kills through, looking poised to get the cap back. No Talk out of the mech, now completely dead to rights. The overtime ticks down.
Nice play.
Oh, not quite. They do stall it out for a moment, but this is now trickles in from No Talk. The overtime will surely tick down any minute now, and Fireball will once again even up the score.
They should do after a couple of members just go down. This is still Machi trying to stay in. Kent doesn't even get to use his pulse. Will goes down straight away. Self-destruct outside will clean up Nonez. That's going to be the cap over. 2-2 is the scoreline, and that last fight should have been a little bit better for Machi because they had both defensive ultimates. They still lost 3 members with a Transcendence and a sound barrier together. How do you lose 3 members like that? It just should not have happened for Machi.
And Fireball's positioning and execution, it is good, but it also seems to be kind of taking Machi by surprise. I'm not exactly sure what that is. I mean, I feel like we've got this 2-part thing here where Machi are kind of stumbling a little bit. I mean, Fireball are playing very well. They're playing probably the best they ever have even, but Machi aren't playing at their best right now, and that's quite scary.
Fireball are playing extremely quick, and I don't think Machi are used to this pacing because Fireball, if you've noticed their gameplay so far, they haven't really let go of that the trigger finger. They've just been going, keeping these fights alive. That's why a lot of these fights have just been going for so long. Both teams reinforcing. Machi are trying to do the same thing now. Makes for some exciting Overwatch, but man, it's chaotic.
Yeah. Someone has to win it here, though, on control center, and already both teams jostling for position a little bit. This one went very promisingly for Fireball, actually, right out the gate, so we'll see if they can maybe do a similar thing this time.
Right, well, you know, the early positioning counts for so much here, and so for Fireball, they look like they have it over Machi, and they absolutely do, because they get the kill into DCR1, convert it onto Nonez.
He deflected the Helix rocket. That's a rough one for Nonez to have to take on the chin, and yeah, you put it on the head there. Fireball's positioning was just better than Machi's.
Well, you know, got the sort of high ground secured. I mean, Apudo was standing in the exact location Nonez would have liked to have been in, and that says a lot for Machi because they can't get their soldier player in the correct position where they need him to be. He's still on the ground, unfortunately, in the back line here. Fireball still have what I would like to say the positional advantage. You see all the high ground is gone for Machi.
Yeah, that they absolutely do have. And look, Apudo is continuing to get damage down from the side. It just makes it so unsafe for DCR1 to commit. We're looking to get a repeat now as he's going to go in to get the kill. This time DCR1 does just barely retreat, but the Pulse Bomb catches Nonez. So they go on the now exposed backline while DCR1 was retreating to a health pack. Apudo barely walks away with his life, but he walks away with the kills as well, so all's well that ends well.
It's a very cheap fight win for Fireballs, or only one Pulse Bomb committed onto Nonez, and then you had Apudo on the backline killing Kiyomi as well. That was enough to force Machi back. Unfortunately, Fireball didn't pick up any more kills, but they buy a decent amount of time. We're already over 50%. Machi got a large deficit to catch up on.
Very early sound barrier commit from Machi. They've decided they want to take this fight no matter what, and it does force out the Transcendence, but there's still tools remaining for Fireball as the Transcendence comes out from Kiyomi. Unfortunately, sound barrier not enough to save Kurlos, and now Fireball are going to have to commit some offensive ultimates. That is if they don't lose Apudo here, which does indeed happen. T1 is now really the only thing they have to go off here, and as NZNR1 can get something huge. Ninth loses the mech, and Machi are able to strike back, and this time it's a very cheap fight win for Machi. All they used was their defensive ultimate.
Yeah, unfortunately, both Transcendences used their. Kurlos dies afterwards. Rocket didn't get the save on him with sound barrier, so Fireball had to play with that one player deficit. They couldn't make up. Apudo dying to Can as well is what really put the nail in the coffin for Machi to get that retake in. It's a little bit late, but it's not all over just yet. We've seen Machi come back from a worse situation already on Garden, so I mean, this is still a winnable situation perhaps.
That goes wide for Can. Little unfortunate. Apudo wants to go straight in, no hesitation on this one, but he can't quite find these squishy backliners. So it's a little bit all for naught. No Talk able to commit to self-destruct to kind of force him off to the side. Now Fireball don't really have any aggressive ultimates. Notice, shut down on his. And now Apudo starts to find kills, catching out Kiyomi on that one. And that is very good news for them. The sound barrier may just be too little too late here. As Fireball kind of have free reign over this, they may lose T2 here, but they're looking poised to strike back. DCR1 in a world of hurt. NZNR and Apudo are able to tag team that one, close out the kill. And now if Machi trickle into this as the cap goes over, they're going to feed a bunch of ultimates over to Fireball, who are going to get the cap at 87% and should be able to close it out. Oh,
dangerous position for Machi to be in. They do manage to get one kill back, but they're still losing way too much. The cap did go over. We're going to head into overtime now. Machi do not have any position or chance to give this one up. They just got to go, and I don't know if they can even reinforce in time. There's still two ultimates on Fireball's side.
Unfortunately, NZNR's Pulse Bomb going wide does hurt them a little bit. Very early Transcendence forced out, but they catch Rocket anyway. This is a good opening, but they do pick one back. DCR1 forced off to the side. Does get out with his life, but he might not be so lucky this time. Indeed, he does go down. They found NZNR, and Apudo is forced way back. He will still have that Dragon Blade. They can just take this loss on the chin as well if they want to maybe go for one more fight. Or they maybe want to commit. T2 did throw the ultimate in. I think they should maybe just back off.
No, they're going to stay into this one. Sound barrier committed.
They need to pick up Nonez as well. Apudo, he's got two. He needs to get more though. Nonez, he's committing his Dragon Blade now, and he trades onto Apudo. That could be all they need, but Nonez goes down to Kurlos. And Fireball, they're just barely holding on to this one. NZNR respawns. It's just no talk on the point now as DCR1 has lost his life. And Fireball, they look like they might just be able to do it. The overtime down, they pick up a map win against Machi.
A close one as well, 2-2 that went into overtime. I mean, Fireball, they're going to be happy with an initial map win against Machi, specifically because, they also have a new player on board as well. This is a big test for the lineup. They're going to try to find out, is this new lineup going to do what we hope it's going to do? Apudo is certainly still carrying the way the team fairly well. We saw from NZNR really great plays, and I think both teams at various different moments had some very risky decisions being made, even on the Fireball side. Right at the end there, we kind of thought like maybe they were going to back out of that. No, they decided to stay in. That could have gone disastrously. It ended up working for them, much like it did for Machi on Gardens as well. So, both teams taking risks. Sometimes it pays out, sometimes it doesn't. This time, though, for Fireball, 3 map wins to 2 onto Lijiang Tower specifically, so it ended up working out better for them in the end.
Yeah, and I do feel like there were junctures where the other two that they did lose could have actually gone their way as well, and potentially the same as the inverse may be true for Machi. They were a little bit less close, I feel, on the ones that Fireball won than Fireball were on the ones that Machi won, but I do feel also there is this alternate universe where Rocket is still the main Winston, and that fight at the very end there for Fireball went alright because T2 stalled out very well with his ult in a situation where often we would see Rocket do the same and unfortunately lose his life. So I will go out on a limb and say, look, maybe there's still more gelling to do, but so far, T2 is what Fireball seem to need.
I think that's a big thing that you just noticed in Fireball's team play right there. You were saying that they were very aggressive, always holding on to the point as much as they possibly could. I was also noticing that they knew when to cut their losses. They knew when to back off. Quite often when you see Fireball win a team fight, you said this, is that most of Machi ended up dead, if not their entire team. When Fireball lose a team fight, it's maybe half the team at most. There's the occasional full team wipe, but Fireball, much more often than Machi, were able to retreat out and not hand over too much ultimate charge to Machi.
And now with that picked up, Fireball actually get, sorry, that's a lie. I was going to say Fireball get their own map pick, but that was actually Fireball's map pick. So, never mind.
So there it is. So now Machi get the opportunity to maybe strike back on one of the hybrid maps. Fireball, Lijiang Tower, it does go their way. What I got to say about this is it was very close at the end of the day. It wasn't like Fireball 3-0, that one even 3-1. A 3-2 means Machi Esports could have swung it back, and they may very well still swing it back. This is still an extremely good looking Fireball squad. And if this is the test against Machi, I mean, they beat Machi in the first round robin. They're looking to do it again here, and this would mean a lot to the Fireball squad because they have, after that one win against Machi in the first round robin, they haven't picked up anything else beyond the Japanese team. So right now, this is already a fantastic start, but they've got to keep it going.
Yeah, and I tell you what, it would make for an absolutely heartbreaking. By the way, you start off the day by getting mathematically eliminated from playoffs in a game that you didn't even get to play. You had no say over that one. Then you pick up a loss against Blank, who are looking resurgent. If you then go on to lose against Fireball, who have struggled really to pick up wins as much as they do have a few in the back pocket, it would be absolutely heartbreaking for that to be how you start to close out this tournament as Machi.
And this is the thing for Machi as well, is while they had a meteoric rise through the second round robin, you kind of feel like they've peaked out now. This is about as good as Machi gets. Machi had a good rise up, but they did plateau eventually towards the end of the third round robin. And it does feel like for Machi, they are running out of options somewhat. This is just the Machi we're dealing with currently.
Yeah. And this is Fireball actually catching up by their own improvement as well. And in fact, they're still adding onto that to this very night as well. You can see that by the fact that they're adding in a new player, adding in Titawatt, still changing up their roster, still trying out new things to bring themselves to new heights. And it's clearly showing tonight, even though that's a close Lijiang Tower, 3-2, it's still a map win against a team that they have not beaten since the first round robin.
I'm now very curious actually to see where specifically Machi do take this, because I think the question that we do still have to ask about Fireball is, has that little extra boost in team play and team coordination been enough to kind of steer them well through these escort-related maps as well? They will be going to hybrid first, and it is a bit of a different beast. The way you kind of have to position yourselves, the way you have to measure your aggression, it's much more dependent on tracking enemy ultimates, I feel, and it can be a little bit of a finer art on hybrid than it is on control. So I think this is still quite a tough ask for Fireball, and they'll be going into Machi's pick, and I'm curious to see what specifically that pick is so that Machi can get more of an
And I'd like to see Fireball play a little bit more calculated also, because so far they've been playing for ultra aggression. It kind of works out on a control type of map where, you know, you do reinforce rather quickly, the distance is not that far. Also, it's sort of the equal from the other team anyway, so eventually if you're just faster in there and you're more aggressive, you can overpower the other team. The map pick comes through. It is going to be King's Row from Machi. They brought this out against Blank already, and the result of that map was, even though it was a loss, it was actually the closest map in that series against Blank. So I think Machi kind of bringing out the big guns here a little bit. And for Fireball, this might just be the map that kind of breaks it, because like we said, like you just said, moving into other game modes that are not controlled, you need to have more of a controlled play style.
Also, in regards to Fireball as well, the last few times we've seen them on King's Row, they've been trying out a Reinhardt composition on the first checkpoint and the third checkpoint on defense, right? Now that they've got this new tank player in Titawatt, we don't know what they're going to do. We don't know if they are going to stick to the Winston, because maybe he's got a bit of rocket syndrome and from the early few weeks where he can only really play Winston compositions, but maybe he's also a fantastic Reinhardt player, and maybe that's why Fireball are finally bringing him in.
And that's the thing I would kind of like to see. I mean, we talked about that as well. When they did bring in Rocket, it was this, like you said, band-aid. It was a stopgap. And one of the things it was a stopgap for was actually their inability to run anything other than dive for a particular time. They couldn't put Rocket on the Reinhardt at all reliably. We just barely started to see it in the last few games that they were able to play, but even then it didn't feel quite convincing enough. And when his Winston, as it were, started to look not quite convincing enough either, Tita now coming in with this Winston looking good. If he can also pull out a Reinhardt and have that look good, I think that would put Fireball in very good stead for this final round robin.
I think if you were going to get in a new player specifically for the tank position, you'd want him to be able to also play the Reinhardt. Otherwise, it'd be a bit of
Certainly.
It'd be a bit of a strange sort of pickup at this stage of the game.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want it just to bring in a Winston one trick or anything like that. So yeah, this is kind of what we're expecting. A little bit of a pause here while we wait, but
You're quite right. And one of the reasons Rocket wasn't actually able to run that Reinhardt very well, he wasn't actually their tank. He was brought in as a support. Like, it's not like, you know, as much as you say, oh, if you bring in a tank, you want them to be able to play Winston and Reinhardt and all the tanks. Actually, the problem was none of the tank players quite could play any of that, and that was their stopgap for that.
Oh, now they've managed to put Rocket back onto what I would like to say is maybe his preferred pick here.
Certainly.
I actually think Rocket made a lot of good progress on tank though, despite that being a stopgap. And I think Fireball in general, the fact that they were able to improve as they were with that 6-man lineup, with Zalfix on the support and Rocket on the tank positions, had some decent, good success. Didn't really find it with the Reinhardt at the end of the day, but when we looked at the end of the third round robin, we said, look, this is a team that has now looked like very comfortable on dive, almost mastered what they need to do here.
I'd say as well that the swap Rocket onto the Lucio is that it's a very different viewpoint of the battlefield as well. And in terms of shot calling, what you can bring to the decision making for your team is an entirely different level. Winston, you're up in the front lines quite often, and you're very, very often focused on your own survival. And a lot of the time that didn't quite work out for Rocket anyway. But now that his mind space is now very much freed up, he can get a better view of the battlefield, can actually call back for the tanks to come back to the backline when the healers are harassed, because he has a very clear view of that. If he's the Lucio, he knows when he's getting jumped on, so he can actually call for help quite similarly to what other DPS players like Soldier specifically will be able to call out as well. So, whole new viewpoint.
Okay, well, the game has been unpaused now, and we're about to head into King's Row map number 2. It is Machi's pick. Don't forget, and I like to see the flexibility from Fireball now. Are they going to run the Reinhardt? What does that look like?
Very curious indeed. It looks like out the gate on the defense.
Not to start with anyway.
Yeah, they are going to stick with this Winston. Also sticking with the Pluto on the Genji. So this looks very dive oriented and is on the defense. Machi also unchanged.
Yep, both teams going to stick to their guns here. Kurlos, even on the Zenyatta for defense, says a lot about this lineup. Usually you'd see the Ana in that position, but the fact that he's playing the Zenyatta means Fireball want to get aggressive even on the defense. This has now become a bit of a hallmark of the team.
Yeah, and I think that's an absolutely fair assessment. And good aggression actually coming out of the gate by Machi, but the answer is there by Rocket. This is exactly how they want to play. Close out on Can. Unfortunately, losing a Pudo in that means the opening is there for Machi, who have the shorter respawns. They'll get Kant back fairly quickly.
Yep, so a little bit of early aggression does get subsided now for Machi as they continue this push onwards. Good position going from Nonez. Actually, they get the kill onto Rocket, so far Nonez has been unanswered.
Yeah, ninth as well going down. That was a little unfortunate for them there. There was a brief moment after losing a Pudo where if Fireball were able to convert a few more kills, they would maybe be able to steer themselves through that, but no such luck. And Machi actually in quite a clean push look like they're going to be able to cap this one through.
And this is the problem that Fireball just had, which was their first defensive push was actually good. They contested that high ground that Nonez was on. They actually tried to collapse on top of Machi, and then when Machi respawned and regained their positioning, Fireball looked a bit lost. They're playing a dive composition, you need to actually get aggressive, and for Fireball, a team that does usually get aggressive, they just didn't know where to go after that, which is a problem because the lineup really starts to fall apart quickly if you do not turn on that aggression with this dive.
Yeah, I mean, they really needed to pick out someone like Nonez or DCR1 on top of that to really make Machi reconsider their attack there, but no such luck, and now not quite able to go for a super early fight. They are going to look for one roughly here, but Can already looking to go in for the sticky. Did go wide, unfortunately, for him, but they're able to re-put the aggression on here. Now with the sound barrier running, Nonez can open up this attack visor if he wants. Apudo's going to try and open up instead. Just a double transcendence here. Nobody dies except Apudo. Nonez with this tactical visor gets shut down, so apparently no DPSs will be allowed to ult. Now the trays are just coming through. This just burns down the clock in Fireball's favors. Tijawat is going to commit his ultimate as well. They're not quite able to convert the kills through here. Unfortunately, the only one he's really finding is DCR1, who should be able to retreat anyway. And Fireball did lose a ton of members there, so the payload is back underway.
And T1 might just sacrifice himself here as well. He bought a little bit of time with the payload. Unfortunately, he didn't secure any kills. He wanted to escape right at the last moments there, but couldn't quite make it out. So Fireball, they're going to wait for him to respawn because they got no front line while they're running off this dive. And so far, this card is nearly at the junction.
Yeah, trying to get around the corner. Fireball actually had to go in for a final contest here as well, really, and they can do so, yeah. Pulse Bomb, and connected from Kant, and that should be all they need to swing this one over. They're able to pick T1 as well, immediately off the back. The self-destruct from 9th does not find anything, and the cap poised to go through now. Fireball have lost the opportunity to contest.
Yeah, this is the problem with running this kind of aggressive dive for Fireball as well, is when you lose the initiative, you lose the tempo of the game. The game goes in the favor of Machi. You're still running a dive where you rely a lot on your initiation to actually get things done. So as a dive composition, you don't want to get dived, and that's kind of the problem Fireball have currently.
And this thing up, they're looking actually quite good on control. Yeah, they're looking a little bit silly almost on this hybrid map. You're right, this dive is just, it's not working, and they still look a little bit one-dimensional here. Now they're trying to get aggressive again, but already losing Kurlos to the self-destruct is unfortunate for them.
Somehow he dies.
He is forced back here. And that Transcendence does see him right. Oputo getting picked off, and they catch 9th with the mech, and then the pilot. NZNR goes down. The payload continues moving, and Fireball are still just not even getting kills when they go for these aggressive moves.
The thing for Machi now is they found their stride. They found how they need to play the pacing of this game. And Kings Row, look, we see why they picked this map. As soon as you go into hybrid, this isn't control anymore. You can't treat it like control. The Pulse Bomb did went down. Did go down in 9th. It does collect a mech though, so that's something.
That was a bit odd.
He recalled to the first cat.
I just saw that, yeah. That was a little bit strange for a moment. I don't know if that's an Easter egg or what's going on there, but Machi's still converting the kills through, and that's really just down to this tactical visor. The payload is just inches from the finish, really, and it looks like they're going to get this cap through, and it's NZNR can really stall out for a long time. No such like great shutdown yet, and they get the cap through with a ton of time. Really, Fireball's best bet now is to push this to time bank.
And you actually saw, I don't know if anyone caught right at the end there, but T1 changed onto Reinhardt. Didn't even manage to spawn in time to actually make use of it. So here's the thing with Fireball.
He swapped just before that. He did get a charge onto DCR1, but nothing.
So he came out, he did something.
Yeah, nothing came of it, and then he died. He didn't really get any kills. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad play. I mean, at that point, the game was very much on the back foot for Fireball anyway, so it's hard for the Reinhardt to impress, but yeah.
And when you're on the back foot, then again, this is the problem, and Fireball needed to identify this. Is the dive still working at that stage? And it's not so much the dive, but also how you're playing it. Like I said, once you lose initiative, the dive becomes very ineffective. You can't be a dive composition where you get dived first. It just doesn't work. So, for Fireball, maybe a change-up earlier on would have helped them out. Maybe putting T1 onto the Reinhardt at the start of that third checkpoint and not at the end would have been the difference for the team. Because Fireball kind of fell apart after Streets Phase. They kind of looked like they had a couple fights in them, and even Streets Phase wasn't super clean. First cap wasn't clean either. In fact, all of that defense looked quite messy for them.
Yeah, I really would have liked to see that Reinhardt come out much, much earlier. I absolutely agree with you there. And also, we know Oputo can play Soldier. We know Kurlos can play Ana. I really feel like they didn't have to go for the dive. I think they wanted to because the aggressive play has been working for them. It did work on Lijiang, and maybe it's worked in scrims as well, but didn't work there, and they were very, very slow to change it up.
You have to be able to change the pacing. I think one of the big things we mentioned that you actually brought up first was we're now onto hybrid and it's not control anymore. This is the type of play style that Fireball is sort of bringing over from that control. And the real test is, can they reassess the pacing a bit? Can they sort of reassess how to play this map in a more patient, calculated style? And so far for the defense, not yet.
It's going to be a scouting Hanzo, probably a scouting Widowmaker as well as, yeah, there go both the changes through.
So they're going to stick onto the dive, but at least on the attack you have a good sort of reason to be running this dive, or at least a much better reason, much safer reason to be running the dive. And
Oputo just noped out of that room so hard, by the way.
Chance to actually be able to commit as well. Yeah, he kind of did, because after the deflect he knew there was no way he could fight the Roadhog 1v1 in close space.
It's a good maneuver by Machi, by the way. They kind of take the initiative away from Fireball, so now they go, okay, you can dive onto it, but you have to dive off the point to do it, which is absolutely not what Fireball wants to do. That being said, they are just kind of happy to be on the point itself and force Machi to come to them. Good hook does does kind of force a little bit of an awkward maneuver out of Titawat, but they catch Kant, and now they close out on DCR1, and the maneuver kind of backfires on Machi, because suddenly they had to commit to Fireball, who were on the point, and dare I say it, I think Fireball are about to cap this in a faster time than Machi did.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Going to get a late kill onto Nonez as well, which is going to help things out. So here's the thing for Machi. They actually had decent positioning at the back of the point. They gave that up when they went for rotation through the hotel. It also flipped the script. It looked like Fireball were defending and Machi were re-attacking. Unfortunately, you know, what Machi really needs to rely on, specifically with a lineup that utilizes soldiers, is you need to maintain your good positioning. That's how you beat the dive, and they lost all of that.
This is quite smart now by Fireball as well. They're doing this to stop Machi from taking an early fight under the archway. This is how this aggression
Well,
kind
they
of
can
works.
get punished too.
Yeah, it can get punished, exactly. And losing NZNR is exactly how that happens. They need to wheel back
they
before they
got
lose
more.
anyone else, but never mind that. Titawat goes down, and now Machi can take that early fight anyway.
In fact, they get better than an early fight. They get a guaranteed fight where Fireball can't even really contest this.
Oh,
But they keep
Pudo as
losing
well.
members as well. And this is becoming a real problem for Fireball. They overextended, unfortunately. NZNR going down meant everyone needed to fall back. So Fireball didn't get any real significant distance here. Machi still get the contest, still get the hold near the bookshop, which is where they wanted to start with.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And look, that sort of play works if you do actually get some kills with it, but Machi know that that's something that Fireball can do. You know, they know that it's something they do. It's something a lot of teams actually try and do, so they're prepared for it. Here's going to be the commit to try and catch DCR1. All good hook, but blocked out is the shot. Good defense there now. Pudo looking to open up. Transcendence there once again from both teams. They catch DCR1. They've lost Ninth's mech, but they're able to convert a few more through, looking to catch Kiyomi as well.
Nice
and they are
deflect.
going to get the payload back underway. Great deflex to really sort everything out in that fight, in fact. And they do get the payload moving.
That was a much better fight from Fireball as well. You see when they actually get the initiative of the fight they were looking for, they commit first. Yes, Machi responded with the sound barrier. Apudo doesn't really care about that. The 2 kills from Dragon Blade, that's what really secured it for Fireball. And Machi had no response whatsoever. This is going to be a hidden Earth Shatter if DC1 can help it.
Yeah, he's absolutely looking to get that through, but they also know that it didn't come out in the last fight. They will be aware that it's available.
All eyes on this player. Wow, trading players fairly early. There it is.
Oh, catches Kurlos in it. That was absolutely phenomenal. That was one of the best Earth Shatters I've seen in weeks. Can opening up with the whole hog as well. The good news for Fireball, at least even in that fight loss, is they did get one trade back onto DCR1, and they didn't use any of their ultimates of their own, so Machi did exhaust pretty much everything they had.
Well, that was about the point you needed to exhaust what you had, because any later than that, the cap would have actually gone over. Now you're at the sort of stage where this is a sort of an easier place to actually defend. This is where the respawn really gets leveraged and neutralized for both teams. In fact, even maybe in favor of the defense here.
Oh dear, NZNR, he goes down and commits the pulse bomb into nothing as well. They might just be able to close out into Kant anyway. Apudo's trying to get all over this one, but there's good protection now from the Diva, and Apudo's just going to get forced back. Honestly, overstayed there. They'd already lost NZNR. They actually should have just backed off immediately, because now they've just lost time.
Well, the problem there is Fireball, they thought they could get the kill there. Apudo really believed he was going to get a kill onto Cannon. I wanted to believe that as well, but very good saves.
I wanted to, but it's not
very
sensible.
good saves from Neutral with the Matrix really prevented that, and because they prevented that, well, the kill into Titawat came through, and now Fireball do lose its home. With only 2 minutes and about 8 seconds remaining. Cut distance is still fairly far away from them. If this goes to the overtime, it's going to be very difficult for Fireball to contest it.
Indeed, Apudo again getting aggressive. He is able to deflect up that shot in advance. Ninth already opening it out. They've caught DCR1 in a bind as well. Now they're just going to open it up. Kiyomi committed the nano boost there, but I'm not even sure who it went on to. I think they're already dead. At any rate, Nonez getting forced out of this one. Apudo able to close out the kill. Cap goes through, and Fireball used nothing.
They use nothing, and
Except
they get a decent amount of distance. Well, I mean, it kind of makes up for it because, you know, earlier on, NZNR used the pulse bomb, then still got killed by Nonez. Anyway, this time around.
Oh,
Yep,
they want to
okay.
open it straight out. They don't want to waste any time, but it doesn't
dies.
quite work. They do trade one back onto Kant. Nonez is able to get his tactical visor out, rather. Not his sound visor, I don't know what that would even be. And they are going to stall up this payload. Fireball, best case scenario, go to time bank. Worst case scenario, have to first hold infinitely.
You can almost just group up the ultimates any way you want now. Sound visor, Earth Shatter visor, I don't even know. It just
Earth visor.
Primal visor should be an interesting one as well. Either way, Earth Shatter coming back up for DCR1. The last one was very successful. This one looks like it's a good goodie as well.
caught Apudo, but they didn't quite close out the kills. Now the response can actually come through. Good save by Kurlos. The whole hog catching NZ&R, and it does take him down there. Had to really commit to make that one happen, and they drop ninth off an edge.
Not quite.
Yeah, he's able to rock it back out, but he's going to trade the mech for that. And Apudo shouldn't be coming to ninth's rescue. It ought to be the other way around, because the hook onto Tita, what now? He was actually looking for Apudo, who just leapt out of the way, and now Apudo may be the only one to get out with his life when all is said and done. But the payload, again, still stopped and more time wasted.
And that's going to be the change-up now for Tita, deciding, look, the dive is just no longer working. Kurlos on the Ana as well. Fireball changing up their attacking strategy. 1 minute and 45 seconds remaining. It's almost about as late into the tournament as they changed up their lineup as well. So, here we go, Fireball, final opportunity.
I would like to see this Pulse Bomb get a great stick this time around, but NZ&R has already gone one. Apudo, he is far too deep there. He keeps putting himself in these very dangerous situations, and I don't even know what happens to Tita, what there maybe charged himself off an edge, but Fireball, again, actually failing to retreat successfully. They're losing members every single time it happens, losing far more than they need to, because it's like they keep trying to poke as they retreat, and they just keep wasting time.
And they're playing into Machi's game as well. Like I said earlier, Machi have set the pace now, they've set the tempo. This is about where Machi want to be able to play. Fireball kind of trying to match that now with playing the Reinhardt themselves. This Reinhardt battle should be extremely important. The big difference is still they're running half of a dive. They're still running Tracer Genji, and Kent's just happy to go fishing.
That he is. Kiyomi's going to commit out this nano boost onto DCR1, who closes out on T1. The nano visor, it's not even a nano visor, it's just a regular old tactical visor. The nano is completely elsewhere, and they clean up the entire squad of Fireball, save for ninth.
So Fireball still, they're running half of a dive and half of a shield composition. It's a little bit weird, and they're trying to make this work, but they still got to go aggressive for Apudo and NZ&R to get the job done.
And the Earthshatter, oh good heavens, that was gross. Connected onto everyone, and they're able to convert it through with that whole hog. They forced the members back.
Late kill.
I mean, there's maybe enough time for one final fight for Fireball, but they're going to have to make a beeline for the payload, and they're going to be relying on a huge Dragon Blade.
Absolutely. NZ&R's already chunked out as well, so he has to get rapidly healed up. Every single ultimate should come out for Fireball.
Oh, that's a good
start.
opening though. Yeah, they've actually managed to catch DCR1, and they commit their own nano boost onto Apudo with that blade.
Nice.
He catches no Nez. They do get the momentum going on their side. As much as they have the barrel and beeline for the point, they make it work. They catch no talk. Now they need to send a couple of people ahead to catch these respawners as they come out. If they can keep converting kills onto Machi and not let them regroup, they could actually push this through to the end here.
And
but Machi not going to let that happen.
There's still an Earthshatter available for Tita as well, so this is about where we need to see this new guy shine on the team. Can Tita secure this? Because he's going to have to. This would be one hell of a way to open up his career.
This is really the only guy to do it, and he does. He catches the backliners, but there's no one to follow up. They're trying desperately. They have the sound barrier to give themselves the mileage, and ninth, able to get back into the mech. At least Apudo finds Can, but the traders back onto the Reinhardt. I don't even know whose pulse bomb it is actually. It must be NZ&R's, but they're closing them out. Apudo's keeping this one alive for his team, even as NZ&R goes down. They must close on DCR1, and now he's got a nano boost. He finds Apudo, and he's looking to close it out with this Earthshatter. He does catch ninth. There's no one left for Fireball. They won't take it to Time Bank. Machi will close this one out to even up the series.
1-1, and look, if Lijiang Tower was extremely close, and I said this was going to be a competitive series, Machi want to make sure that everyone knows it's going to be a competitive series as well. This is now where some of the weaknesses of Fireball do rear their ugly heads around. Look, they look fantastic on Control for the reasons that they do not look fantastic on King's Row, unfortunately.
And the thing is, right, even if you turn around the series at some point here and take the win if you're Fireball, if one of the wins is on Assault, you still have to win one of either Escort or Payload. And you're right, so far they've looked very poor. Escort or Payload, Escort or Hybrid. They've looked very poor on the defense, on specifically the Payload part of Hybrid. So that's kind of what they carry into this. They have to win at least one of them, and that's actually looking a bit difficult
And
for
that's
them.
the problem as well, because their attack wasn't super hot either. They looked better on the attack, but they couldn't cap it out at the end of the day. And even if they could, it would have gone into the overtime, would have still been heavily in Machi's favor.
Because of course, right, they'd have to defend at the first point without even giving up a whole third.
For 3.5 minutes.
And that's basically impossible, right? Especially when you look at their defense on the first round, right? Which just absolutely crumbled the first second that Machi set foot in there, which was pretty incredible as well. And, you know, we were talking about, hey, maybe Fireball might be bringing out a Reinhardt composition on defense. that didn't happen at all. And in fact, you guys said, yeah, they were running just 100%
Happened way
dive.
too late.
100% dive on the first point, and down to the Zenyatta as the healer rather than Ana. So that is very much a huge commitment to how you are playing the game. And I think the biggest thing that you said, Avril, was that like as soon as Fireball are not in control anymore, their composition falls apart.
And they didn't actually need to do it. Tito Watt can actually pull out that Reinhardt. I will say as well, he was decent enough on that Reinhardt. He did make one absolutely enormous mistake in dropping the shield. He allowed a huge Earth Shatter to come through, but that was the only mistake he made. That was the only significant mistake he made. The rest was just not quite there, and we didn't quite see enough of it to see if he would make that mistake consistently, or if actually he is much better than that and that was a one-off. We don't have enough evidence to go off, but we can maybe say, look, they definitely don't have to just run dive, and when we do come back, because we will absolutely go to escort at least at this point, we are definitely seeing a fourth game, maybe even a fifth one. When we go back to these payload-oriented maps, Fireball need to run something that isn't just dive on the defense.
I'll tell you what, who didn't make a mistake. The DCR1 on the Reinhardt, every single Earth Shatter connected, and it was deadly. There were a couple in there that caught maybe even up to 4 members. Even 3 members would have been a team fight, but 4 members is a massacre, and they absolutely got the kills off of that as well. So it wasn't a devastating situation where the Reinhardt puts the Shatter down, and then not enough damage comes through, which is kind of the case for what happened with Tito Watt when he finally put his one down. We said, look, they needed an extremely good Earth Shatter from Tito Watt to actually clean up the game. It wasn't good enough, and then also on top of that, they couldn't get the damage done. So even the lineup from Fireball towards the end on their final part of the attack, they finally put Tito on the Reinhardt, but they ran half a dive anyway. Genji and Tracer with the Reinhardt, it wasn't working.
I feel like as well, one of the things that I said was going pretty well for Fireball on control was that they were able to cut their losses quite often. They were able to retreat without giving away too many kills. Not the case so much on King's Row at all. In fact, a lot of their fights just seemed to go a lot longer than they had to. Quite often there would be an ult thrown out when the fight was definitely over and people were just getting caught on the retreat. Now that's also some credit to Machi, who were routing them as Fireball were retreating, because Fireball were retreating at points, but they weren't doing it well enough, they weren't doing it early enough, and Machi punished them for it.
Yeah, you're actually quite right there. They overextended a lot and they flubbed a lot of their retreats, and I feel like that was a lot of what was going wrong on their offense as well, because they were actually getting good fight wins, and actually they could have done it all a lot cleaner. They could have lost a lot less time if they had also been cleaner on the fights they were losing.
Let's talk about that commitment on the second Streets phase as well, where they capped through on the first attack, which by the way was actually decent, because it seemed like it was a faster attack through than Machi, and I want to believe that it was. So that was half because I feel like Machi missed position, but Apudo and the rest of his squad on Fireball capitalized off of that. They then went on Streets and pushed quite aggressively, couldn't get anything out of that, lost 3 members crucially.
And we haven't seen teams actually go for that play for quite a long time now, because it's high risk, high reward. The risk is you basically go into a 5v6 because you've got to keep at least one guy on the payload. The reward is you create, like if it goes off, you create so much space, you cap that second point for free, especially if you only need to commit one ultimate to it, which was certainly their plan. Apudo was still holding on to the Dragon Blade, but the failure to execute on that was absolutely disastrous.
You actually do see teams go for it, but it's the reasoning behind it. Like, what do you, when and how are you going for it?
And they only really sent 3 members anyway.
What are you actually executing there? Because for Fireball, they sort of were looking for an opening. They saw the shield come out from DCL1 because he stayed on the right hand. They're like, we actually don't know how to go onto this anymore. Maybe we should leave. Oh, you can't anymore. Inzana is dead. Suddenly Apudo's dead. Then you lose a 3rd member and it's all over. And it makes for a really bad start to that second phase.
It makes you look silly. It makes you look silly, doesn't it?
The thing is, it's also a little bit about hedging your risks, right, as well. Like, sure, you're risking it by going into a 5v6, but if you do lose that fight and you make it last long enough, that's an entire team fight that the defending team isn't contesting the payload. So if you can, even if you're losing the fight, if you're losing it by a small amount and making the fight last a long time, then you're still getting guaranteed distance on the payload while you still have that shot at also winning the fight as well, which is, it's again risk versus reward, but it takes us some of the risk, some of the sting out of losing the team fight.
We do actually see Fireball commit to a decent number of risks as well. It started on Lijiang Tower. We said both teams looked like they were taking a decent amount of risks. Fireball came out on top of that at the end of the day. 3-2 was the scoreline, but there were a number of fights in there where we kind of felt like maybe it would have gone Machi's way as well. Now when we look at King's Row, a lot of those risks suddenly are not paying off. And the question was, were Fireball going to be able to adapt to a different game mode other than Control, where aggressiveness may not pay off, you need to be a bit more calculated? So far, that answer is that they haven't been able to adapt.
So far, the answer, yeah, you're right. The answer has been no. But one thing I do have to say about Fireball is they are actually quite good at adapting during a series. So when we do go over to Escort later on, and possibly even to Hybrid after that, I am confident they can actually still adapt. I mean, we'll have to see, sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have actually realized, look, we can't just do this on the defense. Let's do it right this time.
The good news for Fireball is it is their home pick, so they get to choose at least the Assault here.
An Assault, yeah, I'd say they've got a few decent choices on it where Dive is going to be quite strong. I don't think they're going to want to go to Volskaya simply because Sombra on both of those points can really shut down Fireball's composition. They do have the option of shaking things up. You guys mentioned before the McCree is something that can come out from a Pudo. There's also a Roadhog in there somewhere, and I swear the most times I've seen a first point Volskaya loss on the defense is from a Sombra getting hooked right at the start of the match. So that's also an option for them to shut it down if they do go to Volskaya, but I think Fireball as a dive-oriented composition that rely on so much mobility, they're likely to want to go to Hanamura rather than Volskaya or even Anubis because Sombra's EMP really shuts down that mobility.
And I think a part of what may have been happening as well, opting into the dive maybe more than was really reasonable, is because they've actually been running it for so long and it's really been all they've been able to run. They are all very good at it. They're very comfortable on that, all of them. And when you bring in a new guy, often you do actually want to play what everyone else is most comfortable with, rather than having to change things up while also kind of integrating with this new player and, you know, swapping Rocket back onto his other roles. So that is maybe an argument there, but I think they should actually have a bit of confidence in themselves to go, yeah, look, we are actually gelling with this guy well enough. Let's go ahead and run these other comps now.
And this does look like still a little bit of a problem that Fireball have had since, I guess, the start, where unable to really adapt to a different type of playstyle. They have the one playstyle, that's kind of all they're doing. Let's see if Fireball can change things up for Assault. That will be their pick, and we will find out what map that is right after this break. And thank you for sticking through that break with us as we prepare for map number 3 in Machi Esports versus Fireball. It's going to be Assault, it's going to be Fireball's pick, and it is 1-1 tied in the series so far, and it's fairly close as well.
I really don't know where Fireball are actually going to take this to be honest. I don't know that there's anything in particular. I maybe considering that they'll go to Temple of Anubis so they can kind of open up a Pudo a little bit on Widowmaker. That is an option for them, but I mean, we've seen them shut down teams on Volskaya. We've actually seen them do fairly well on a lot of different Assault maps in a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons. So I feel like this could go just about anywhere.
I actually think Temple is probably the way to go for Fireball. They've been kind of picking Temple in the past as well. There's not really a Assault map that I would say this is Fireball, but from the Fireball performances I've seen on Temple, at least so far, that's kind of where I'm seeing their lineup working a bit more efficiently.
It's definitely a good balance as well because you don't have to worry about the Sombra on the first attack, and Fireball, we saw it also on King's Row, they're quite good at attacking that first point in a very, very reasonably quick time as well, and that's very important. They're not likely on Temple of Anubis anyway to run Widowmaker, I believe, so they're very likely just going to run that full dive composition we've been seeing in the first 2 maps and then take that into the second point as soon as possible. And that's one of the biggest swings that you can get on an Assault map. If you can cap it straight off the back of that first cap, then suddenly you put an incredibly daunting position, a daunting task for the defending team to do on their attack, right? Because suddenly, if they don't get it on their very first attack after their first point, they're facing a huge deficit in the time bank as they set up to get the full cap.
This is kind of interesting thing here. I almost feel like Assault naturally favors Fireball just because of how they play. I mean, they opted into dive on 0.1 defensive hybrid for Pete's sake. Like they clearly are wanting to just play aggressive. In fact, as aggressive as physically possible. So maybe the way they plan their win on Assault here is they just want to cap so quickly they have more time in the bank. Who knows? Like, I mean, that's perfectly valid if they feel their defense may just be a little bit lacking. The offense can actually absolutely make up for that. So I'm curious to see how this goes, but I can't help but feel that Fireball are actually a little bit more favored on this than they are on those Escort and Hybrid maps.
Yeah, the other problem for attack so far is if we take King's Row as an example, they're never actually kept on through towards the very end. So we have to be able to sort of look at the situation. I think first of all, Fireball and the defense need to be able to sort of shore up what they're doing there, because dive might not necessarily be the answer there is a decent amount of setup space for an attacking team, and you can only do so much dive. If they're going to play dive, maybe the best place to go maybe is Hanamura, because you play the choke very aggressively, but if eventually teams even get past there. There's no really good situation, I feel like, in any of the 3 assault maps, particularly for the first point, and even the second point where dive really works in my book. Something maybe hybrid there, but
Yeah. I was referring to the attack, by the way. Like, I don't think they're
sure.
going to. Yeah.
For sure, I just
They'd
think
be silly to run dive on the defense, but you're not wrong. They actually probably will.
They've already done that, which is a problem, because they need to be able to adapt and go and be a bit more versatile. Because the problem I mentioned before the break was, are Fireball just this dive aggressive team? And if they are, well, that's the only thing they can do. They're going to run into problems.
And the other thing we have yet to see, just by the way, with Rocket now moving back onto the support off that tank, we've yet to see whether they will run Sombra on defense and how exactly they will do that. Which of the supports is likely to swap onto that pick? There we go. It is going to be Temple.
And I'm going to talk about this because I was going to say Temple of Anubis is actually the map where it's a lot harder to get a soldier entrenched on the attack. And if there's any difference between Nonez and Apudo in this matchup, is that Nonez has been playing a lot more soldier. Apudo has been sticking on Genji far more often, even to the point of playing Genji on the first point defense of King's Row. And so now Fireball have the option to put Nonez in a bit of an awkward spot. Is he forced onto the Genji now, or is he going to try and find a way to get Soldier to work on the attack on Temple of Anubis, which very much can be punished by Apudo's Genji? He'll just find him and take him out.
Apudo's actually been playing only Genji so far today. I don't think Apudo's gone into Soldier just yet, at least for, and we're talking about Nonez as well, I think Soldier's still going to work decently for Temple Anubis, at least for the first point where there is a bit of high ground control that from a team like Machi, they will look to take advantage of, specifically on their right side flank. Now when we get to the second cap, that's when it gets a little bit too dicey for Nonez. Maybe we'll see a change then, maybe we won't. Wouldn't have really mattered on some of the other maps either. Hanamura is realistically the only other map where Soldier kind of works just across the board because of some of the positioning available. Temple Anubis, Fireball's pick, they're feeling good about this.
One thing I suppose I might as well bring up there, and it probably won't be relevant for this because of how little you do see Soldier, all things considered, but Apudo can actually play Soldier. He just kind of hasn't yet. I think there are obviously good reasons why, and I kind of touched on why I feel they may be sticking to the dive beyond the point of reason even, but it is actually something they're able to do, and I think it's something that they absolutely will do before the night's out.
And you know what? The golden composition of the double hit scan, what Flash Wolves are running right now, what Blank are running right now, the Soldier Tracer plus Winston Diva and then your 2 standard supports is something that Fireball can absolutely do. They have a decent Soldier in where Apudo is, and they have a decent Tracer where Inzuna is playing as well. And Apudo has roughly the same hero pool as Zonda. They can absolutely pull something off like what Flash Wolves are currently doing.
Problem is, Apudo just wants to play the game, and he wants to do it on Genji. It's a lot easier to actually get that on the Genji, and so unfortunately, I feel like Apudo, he's just going to stick on Genji. I mean, we've seen it tonight. Yeah, it's in his back pocket, but I've got to say, I'm not expecting Soldier to come out on Temple of Anubis tonight, simply because Fireball just seemed way too comfortable in this composition. The Apudo wanting to play the game, bit of a joke, but maybe not too far from the truth, of course, but I don't see Soldier coming out, unfortunately. I mean, as strong as that composition that you just mentioned is, the double hit scan, Fireball just seemed way too comfortable keeping Apudo on Genji.
And that was a killer joke.
And that's the problem though. That's the problem, is they do seem too comfortable and they need to branch out. They need to look for a bit of versatility. And the fact that that double hit scan golden composition, as it were, so far is open to them and they're not taking that, I kind of think is they're missing out on something.
Yeah, I don't really have anything in particular. Yes. Yes.
Me too.
I don't actually have anything in particular to add to that, and I actually think we've kind of broken down what's been going on with their team comp so far pretty well. And I mean, sure, if we really want to, we can start getting into weird questions like, oh, will they run triple tank because Apudo couldn't do Roadhog and yada yada yada. And like, maybe yeah, but even if they would, this isn't where we're going to see it. So I almost feel like we can kind of wrap that up in a blanket and just kind of send it off down the river now. That whole notion of what comps they're going to run, I do still think they'll change things up surely by the end of the night, maybe even on this map in particular, and certainly I think they have to when we do reach Escort, but we just don't know for sure what they're going to run into this. I think one of the few things we can say is they'll almost certainly run Widowmaker on attack out of a Apudo, and we can take some away from that in terms of when you run that you do kind of force the enemy team's position, and I'm curious to see whether this kind of new and improved Fireball can make advantage of that, but even so, they may not actually run the Widowmaker at all.
Okay, well, we still have a couple delays while we're waiting to get into the game itself, but I'm actually thinking composition of why, well, just to finish off this, the sort of discussion on composition is, I think it's unlikely. I think it's unlikely to see Apudo actually on the Widow as an actual pick. It's probably going to be used to scout, but beyond that, Soldier or Genji will be it. The bigger thing for me for Fireball outside of composition is actually playstyle, because their playstyle currently looks extremely aggressive, not so much of anything else. They may need to slow it down for a different type of composition. So if they want to run the Golden Cop double hit scan, they can't play it like they're currently playing it anyway. We are, however, finally getting into this game. We'll have all those questions and more answered.
Yeah, and already coming out the gate, it is indeed going to be a Genji for the defense, assuming that is going to be Fireball as well. Teams tend to opt into the defense first when they have that side pick, because, I mean, the way it goes is basically the more you run down the enemy team's clock, the better you have it for yourself in a way, and if you are able to first hold, kind of set yourself up for an easier kind of win, as you can just kind of cap that first third of the first point. But in any case, yeah, you get that close up with that Diva. You show me that mecha.
Got it? Oh, okay.
I like how she writes mecha on her mecha, like how conceited.
Oh, she could have written it in Korean, then you'd never know.
Yeah,
You
she's,
would never
man,
know.
Diva is so up herself.
All right, so
Fireball on the defense first, yeah.
they are on the defense first. Tracer Genji will be the storyline here, but Kurlos is going to be running the Ana instead of the Zenyatta that we saw last time, and Nunez will challenge with the Genji of his own.
Yeah, Machi just running an absolute hard dive on this for themselves, and I'm liking this. Good pick
Bam,
out.
that's
Cat,
quick.
Yeah. Good aggression by Tita to set that up at Apuno. No hesitation to close that out. That was a potentially punishable move, and then the same being done onto Kiyomi. Now, they do actually stop up that first little maneuver by Machi.
And this is the kind of initiation that Fireball have been looking for. Get the early kills in there. And Apuro so quick, in and out, 2 frags straight away to start things off with. Nothing really more to collect there, but Machi already stopped up, already the first hurdle on their way to that first cap.
Yeah, and already a good amount of ultimate charge up for Apuno as well. This way they will have the Nano Blade combo because they've put that Kurlos onto Ana.
Yeah, they will have that as well. Still both looking to get a bit of charge in there. Is another one being camped, being taken down this time is a little bit troubling for Fireball.
Yeah, now they're looking to get aggressive on the rest of the squad as well. They are topping them off and they're trying to trade back onto camp, but the recall is going to keep them safe. He ends it and has a fair walk to get back to this point, but the fight's going to be a prolonged one anyway. They're able to trade one back onto Nunez, so they've got some legs in this fight, and NZNR will be able to arrive back into it now. So Apudo, if he's able to get this Dragon Blade, which I think he actually will during this fight, they can use it to close this one out, and Machi are already kind of moving on the retreat here now. The dive in from DCR1 can leave the backline a touch exposed if they want to go in on this.
This is going to be a commit. Transcendence actually coming out from Kiyomi, which means, you know, Machi, they want to be able to stay here. Fireball lost a decent number of members. Apudo waiting for an opportunity to Dragon Blade, though. Here it comes.
There he goes. First one he sort of sees in the sights there is Nunez. Goes with the deflect. The sound barrier is there as well, so they're not really finding much for it. Now, the sound barrier for the defense does not actually save Apudo. They do get a couple of trades back, though, so even with Apudo losing his life, they do trade out on the DPS. They're looking to force an O-Talk way back here. Catch the mech on the back end of that. That's very nice. And can even just leave him. There's nowhere to dive off and take a dive, so he's just going to have to wait for the respawn or go all the way back to base and change off, change back on again, give up the ultimate charge. Fireball do actually hold through that.
Which is going to be kind of disappointing for No Talk as well. Smartly that Fireball actually leave that one going. Both traces falling over, which is
interesting.
It actually doesn't work out for Fireball. Machi would probably rather take that trade there due to closer respawns.
Nunez does finally find one with this Dragon Blade, and luckily they've got enough members low that I think they're going to be able to break through this one pretty handily. What Fireball can do is just run down the clock a little bit here if they so please, but even that I think might be a bit of a tough ask at this point. Actually, Ninth can do it. Yeah, Ninth can do it. This is interesting. He's going to kind of force their hand. They have to kill him and let him get the mech back, because otherwise he was going to run down the clock. So Machi will at last cap this through, but that did take them quite a while.
It did. Kurlosen, he switched on to Sombra fast enough that they will be able to get all the health packs hacked. You'd think so by now anyway, and it's going to be a fairly quick push on through for Machi regardless. Taking the flank through, looking for the pulse bomb. I think they missed. No!
Whoa!
Wow, okay. I'm so wrong.
Two of the healers. That's pretty phenomenal, and you were so wrong, but that's the best kind of wrong. NZNR, what a great one. Completely stops up that first maneuver, and this will probably give them time to charge up the EMP too.
Yeah, it does. So, well, Fireball, they stopped that one up.
Also,
and this was
no
going
talk or
this was going to be the hardest fight for Fireball. Always the first fight you play with a Sombra when you don't have the EMP up, where you're still getting positioning, getting the health packs hacked. Machi took a very quick attack, but unfortunately stopped up by one pulse bomb. We're still waiting for the smack.
Yeah, we are actually, and that's the really tricky thing. He's about to get it back here, but while he's still squishy, Aputo has a golden opportunity to get aggressive, but maybe too aggressive is what he goes. Does force out the Transcendence, but No Talk doesn't get back into the mech, so all's well that ends well. And now Machi probably can't really commit to this point safely because of that respawn advantage. They do pick Rocket, but they're kind of struggling.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, good closeout on Kurlos, so no EMP to come through, and they look like they're going to be able to get a third off this. Aputo going to come out of the gate with the Dragon Blade running, but again gets shut down. And now NZNR shut down as well, and excuse me,
this
it
time
looks
you were
like,
wrong.
yeah, Machi are actually going to be set up on this point. The Pulse Bomb out into 9th is going to force him away, maybe.
EMP?
Yeah, no, they're struggling to get into position for it. He's trying to get out onto this one, but he finds that the 9th is down by that health pack. He didn't realize he was still down there. Sorry, No Talk was down by it, and they have got this third through in just the moment here. Purdo out the gate on the Reaper of all things, still trying to trade back, finally getting a kill onto Kant. Finally going to get the Sound Barrier and EMP through so they can start going aggressive. The heartbreak is real for Machi. They did get the third. They were very well set up and actually looked like they may have been able to get a full cap off that, but just barely keeping it alive there was Fireball.
And that third is so important for Machi, at least to get that. It actually looked like Fireball were going to lose more than 1/3. I thought Machi was going to get at least a second one. This is interesting. Now we've got a Reaper from both sides and also a Sombra from both sides. The counter Sombra play now. I'm going to hack all your health packs. This is what the players come down to. And an interesting tidbit that has sort of been, that I sort of received sometime earlier on is when you EMP, you actually automatically have health packs around you.
That is fascinating. So actually Kant can kind of convert those health packs if he does get an EMP up. That could be the play that they wait for. And I feel like once, one Sombra gets in control, it's very hard for the other one to take it back. But never mind that. They pick him out anyway. So it's going to be miles away, that EMP, and Kurlos is about to get his.
And the other thing here with, much like the Infrasight in the Widow 1v1, whichever player gets out their EMP first is going to have a massive advantage. Say goodbye to invisibility, say goodbye to your translocator, and definitely you will not be able to EMP as well as the counter. So very important in terms of which team gets the initiative here. I've already mentioned that Fireball is a team that really needs initiative. They need it now more than ever.
Yeah, Purdo has his Death Blossom available, so Machi do have to be careful how they position, but he has to be careful how he commits it. Does not want to get it all even. Good Pulse Bomb is probably going to just force Machi back here. And now actually Fire will go on the aggressive. They want to convert this into kills,
they should
and they're
be
able to make it work. Yeah, very good aggression there, by very calculated, very measured. Playing a bit of Pet Diva here as well. They don't want to let No Talk get back into that mech in any kind of hurry.
Yeah, definitely force No Talk to either swap heroes and lose that charge, or, there's nowhere to take a dive either. So now EMP is ready for Fireball. This should be pretty devastating because as soon as the EMP lands on both, well, I would say Kiyomi and No Talk specifically, you don't have a Matrix, you don't have Transcendence, the Death Blossom will be deadly.
It absolutely will be. There is going to be, just barely in time, an EMP available for Kant, but they need to time it right. And to that end, Fireball need to time theirs very well as well. See if Kant is able to go for it, because Machi going very aggressive, and Kant gets shut down, and the hack first comes out for Kurlos. Great aggression by Aputo now, looking to catch out the mech in the back side of this one. The hack is there through as well, just to make sure can't escape. The only trade backs there were onto NZNR, and I think Ninth's mech was lost in that fray as well, but he's going to be able to get that back without too much issue.
Oh, okay, that was slightly missed. No, actually, they farm a little bit more XP. That actually works out absolutely
for
fine.
Machi.
For Aputo, a huge you just got back in your mech, then you lost your mech straight away again. One Machi got to work with here is an EMP, but, well, they don't have a mech, and they don't have very many other ultimates. Meanwhile, Fireball do.
30 seconds remaining. They will be able to get the EMP through pretty much unopposed, which is at least good for them. NZNR though, early pick onto Restia. It's already looking hurt for Machi. Kant has to find a window.
That window will close very quickly, and Machi do not strike. 13 seconds is about how long that window is open for.
This is very, very rough. They did actually get the point past 50%, but weren't able to catch that second third, and No Talk is only just getting back into the mech now as Kant goes in for the EMP. Will catch it. There we go. That's a good open for them, and they did force 9th in the out of the mech, if I'm not mistaken. There, he wasn't able to get back into it. Nunez finds his counterpart. Fireball. Wow, that's a really great rack of kills for Machi, and they need to get onto this point now. As Nunez trying to close them out, but the respawns can actually come through. NZNR, he's held on to his life for a minute, but he does go down while he fishes for the pulse bomb. Here's going to be the respawns though. Kurlos committed his EMP and found nothing. He's trying to just stall out now as best as he can. Second, third to come through here. There we go. That's a good pickup for them. Maputo is in though, ready to use this Death Blossom. Tries to go into the back line. Half gets eaten. The other half gets taken out by Nunez's own Death Blossom. He's now getting forced back by T1. Machi is still kind of holding on to this one. But Fireball, the respawns are still flooding out of the gate. It is always going to be a hard ask for them. They do not actually have the health packs hacked in their favor. Unfortunately, able to train down Kurlos now, and they're keeping this one alive. Nunez has got everything on lockdown. Aputo in the 1v1 with him now has to go into the Wraith form. This is still looking dicey for Fireball. They can't quite find their legs on this defense. NZNR once again getting trained down as he comes out the gate. Kurlos now over to the May to try and stall, but it's not going to happen. Machi in overtime will get the cap through.
There's so many members on the actual cap itself. You see how slow the respawns there were for Fireball. They couldn't get enough members out there. The Death Blossom duel right at the end was extremely entertaining as well. Both Death Blossoms coming out at the exact same time, but it was, unfortunately, Aputo falling over. Nunez came out on top of that, and eventually Machi at the final hour in the overtime, they do secure it, but it was a tough ask.
It really was. And I suppose the thing that they can take away from that is now if they do actually cap through and give themselves a bit of overtime, they do set themselves up very nicely, but they do have to cap. They absolutely must cap and get that second point. And best case scenario, they give themselves overtime and cap it there. Worst case scenario is they get that second cap and have to go to golden point. And even worse than that actually would be not capping at all and they lose.
And this kind of looks like Kings Row all over again. Machi do eventually get the cap out at the end, but if it's going to be a repeat of Kings Row, then unfortunately for Fireball, they've really struggled on that attacking phase and getting it through, especially on that second cap without decent momentum, without a big advantage as well, is a difficult ask for a team like Fireball so far, who still, I would say, have a little bit of problem in terms of variety. Now, we're actually seeing the most variety we've ever seen out of Fireball, which is the Reaper coming out,
yeah.
Which is also the Sombra. Well, actually, the Sombra is part of their kit that they normally bring out anyway. The Reaper is the only really new addition here for them.
The one thing we can take away from this, though, is actually their defense looked a lot better than it did on Kings Row. That was very, very important. The first point actually took a very long time for Machi to get through. They had a lot of false starts and only really got it through on the last good attack they had. Luckily, we were able to cap it before overtime. They still had about a minute, but that's 3 minutes run off the clock by the time that it happened.
Yeah, definitely. Machi took their time there, and the second cap was really valuable for Fireball as well. In fact, even the first cap, Fireball had a decent amount of hold. It's going to be 9th actually on the Widowmaker, so, you know, I said they might use a Widowmaker for scouting. You said Aputo might be the one playing that. We're both kind of wrong there. It's going to be 9th. We'll see how he does.
I don't mind both being wrong, frankly. And yeah, we'll see, first of all, how they create the pressure and how well they're able to execute off it. One good thing by keeping Aputo off the Widowmaker and onto the Genji is that's an extra diver that can kind of take advantage of the pressure. They've already found the turrets. They're a little bit safer to use this dive now. See what they can pull off.
And it really forces Nunez back as well. You see, Nunez is very hesitant to show his face here, which means his damage output has been severely limited unless he can reposition safely, which doesn't really look like. There's a lot of Fireball members now assaulting this first cap, and I don't know, Nunez is nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, and this
is actually the back there.
This is exactly what the Widowmaker does, but if Knight goes down, never mind all that. Nunez, he did actually find the wraparound, and now Fireball need to convert kills through, otherwise they just need to back off, and it seems back off will be the order of the day for now.
Well, you'd hope so, because otherwise Fireball are also that team that will like to commit. What they need to be able to do here is deal with the turret and also deal with Nunez. Those are two of the real big factors for Fireball to be able to shut down, and Ninth actually has to get it big as well if he wants to stay on this Widowmaker.
They're trying to route around the back side of this one now, and they actually make it pay off as they catch Can. Good work for them. Can commit the ultimate off the back end as well. It's a very interesting commit. I think they've realized that a lot of the members weren't really there, so they tried to go for the commit, but they actually just opened up their back line as they sent DCR1 forward. So even with that nano boost, it was all for naught as they absolutely clean house. Machi made a huge mistake in sending DCR1 forward.
Very unfortunate. turret went down as well as the builder Restia in one fell swoop to one pulse bomb. The big takeaway for Machi here is they have nullified the momentum from Fireball. The ultimates have been reset. They got used as well. We're even having a bit of a changeover. And this is kind of smart. I do like this because it's the members that use the ultimates. Incident, Pudo, and Knight. Right, Knight didn't have an ultimate anyway, so whatever. But those first
and it was
members,
only infrastructure.
they already used the ultimate. So here we go. If you got to change, now's the best time.
And they're running a counter Sombra as well. This is very interesting. The one thing though is Nonez will at least know what to do against this. I think there's a little bit more fresh for Kurlos than he was doing it. And there's actually ended in out on it and not Kurlos. So let's see how this pays off for them. They don't really have a huge opportunity to snowball, but they've got a very interesting position coming on this now. Kind of forcing Machi into this spot, trying to get onto the aggression now. Is Apudo off to the side. They're able to sort of sit themselves on the point a little bit, maybe want to try and cap a third off this push.
Yeah, they got to go for the setup play here. And, yep, well, he's already down. And the rest of Fireball will unfortunately follow them straight back to the spawn room. 3 members still alive. Let's hope they actually stay alive, otherwise this could get really bad for Fireball.
Yeah, they are able to at least retreat safely from that position, which was good retreat by them. NZNR will be seconds to this EMP. Actually, hold on a second. He's about to get his one up, so never mind that. If he can get his in before Nonez, then he can steal his health packs away, but Nonez will be able to steal them right back. There's going to be a bit of mind games going on there, actually.
Well, it will be, and the thing is, whichever Sombra actually gets EMP'd by the other one is nearly guaranteed to die. Without invisibility and translocation, it's really, really tough. So Nonez wants to get in there first. Does get it in.
There it is, and they already convert onto Kurlos, but they do trade one back onto Kiyomi. NZNR going down though means Fireball once again going to have to retreat, but unfortunately Tita1 had committed his ultimate there, was maybe a little bit quick on that one, jumping the gun a touch. They need to draw more out of Machi now before they go committing to more fights like that.
A decent number of kills coming out from Machi as well. Will be now NZNR's turn to use the Sombra himself, see what he can get out of this one. And it's really difficult because...
Hold on a tick, that's huge for them. NZNR goes straight in, absolutely no hesitation. And that's actually going to stop No Talk from getting back into this mech for a moment. They need to convert onto some more kills. They're going to go ahead and commit their Transcendence onto the point. Machi do still have some good ultimates coming up. EMP will soon be available. Apudo not quite closing out kills. And they can't find anything. That health pack doesn't belong to you, sir. He does at least find Nonez. That stops up the EMP. Now they're trying to get onto the backline, train down to DCR1, but he's busy dealing with Kurlos. And Apudo, he's just stuck in these awkward duels. Now he's on to try and get this Death Blossom out, but he's too low, gets taken down. They got a good number of kills through, but they still can't get the third. Nonez with the EMP out, looking set to try and close this one out, convert them. They're having a bit of a hard time of it. No Talk losing the mech again, and Nonez is a little bit stuck off to the side here. Tita1 wants to keep the commit alive.
Absolutely does. The Fireball's still in this. Fireball got a decent number of kills. Now they're starting to fall. So while they were getting kills, unfortunately, eventually they get overpowered. Apudo respawn. He's got the Death Blossom still, but look, he's going to have to wait for his teammates now. EMPs came through from both sides at the end of the day.
And they couldn't cap a third. I think that's the hardest thing through all that. Fireball opted to continue committing when they didn't actually need to. They nearly made it work, but by not making it work, all they actually did was run down about 1.5 minutes of their clock.
And Fireball actually really susceptible to EMP. Well, look, first of all, Kurlos gets put to 50 HP. That's pretty devastating. 9th as well. No Matrix to protect. Apudo can't use Wraithform, so as soon as Fireball get EMP'd, it does get very devastating very quickly. Kurlos dies early again, which is a big problem. At least Apudo gets the trade over.
But they lose 9th, so it's not really a trade. They lose Tita1 as well, and it seems that while Apudo is going off on these wild goose chases, the tanks of Fireball are just getting completely trained down. They committed a sound barrier to that one, and now they're going to struggle. Yeah, he's just going to have to go ahead and lose his life here, unfortunately, and they're just losing time.
A decent, you're right. Time is incredibly valuable for Fireball right now, and they've already burnt down a decent amount of it.
They had a minute more than Machi.
They didn't. Unfortunately, that minute has disappeared. It's just gone. How long has Apudo actually held on to this Death Blossom? Because we still haven't seen the opportunity for him to use it. He needs to combat with NZNR. That's how Fireball are really going to get a decent advantage over Machi here. But if they get counter EMP'd instead, if Nonez gets it down before them, then they're in trouble.
The hack doesn't quite come through. NZNR goes on to the point. This actually gets to the third. Hold on, Machi kind of caught napping here. Now they are going to have to come in with the counter attack. NZNR did get the hack out, but Kiyomi was already able to commit. They did pick Nonez. That was one good thing out of it. They're starting to convert some kills through now onto Fireball, and the defense will hold out. Apudo, very late Death Blossom, no hero play, and again, didn't need to commit it. I mean, maybe he was just sick of holding it, but after starting that off well, they lost too many key members right at the top, and they weren't able to retreat. They should have just let that one go.
As sick as you are of holding it, you'll be more sick of it from having wasted it. But Apuda, what it does mean is like, get rid of the Death Blossom, see what it does, change over to Genji instead. I want to believe that he just wanted to change over to Genji anyway. Probably works out a little bit better for him. Slightly less susceptible to the EMP as well. Your passives don't get blocked, so you can still double jump, you can still wall climb, and that is at least a little bit helpful.
They are keeping NZNR on the Sombra though. It is clearly their
EMP came out.
That is a very early EMP out of Nones. They're trying to go aggressive, but it's not actually working. Tito was able to stay alive. They pick Kurlos though, and now they're going to get... Oh no, Apudo saves Rocket's life, but DCR1 keeps the aggression on. The self-destruct in the very narrow space kills Apudo. Fireball, you have to back off now, and you have time for one more push. If they lose any more members here, it could be the end of it.
The good news is they do have that first third to start things off with. They're going to need a little bit more if they want to take it on through. No real ultimates to play with. Self-destruct EMP. Maybe they can get a little bit done with that, get a bit of zoning, and force out Kiyomi at the very least. They're going to need a bit of a miracle though.
They are looking for a good position here by NZNR. Throws out the translocator, goes up, catches a good chunk of the squad. Now they have to convert kills. NZNR is in very deep. He can't hack the pack. He can't hack the Diva. Kurlos is the first to die. NZNR somehow able to get out of that sticky situation, but not for long, as now they convert onto Rocket. They aren't ever closing out these kills quick enough. I don't know who isn't going to where they should be, but it seems that Fireball can never close them out until it is now maybe too late. Apudo finally opening up with the Dragon Blade, but he is dead. Kurlos could not commit the Transcendence. The time runs out, and despite all the best intentions, at no point on that second point offense were Fireball actually in position to convert kills. They were just running into bullets.
And Kurlos was the first one running into bullets, unfortunately for them, the majority of the time. I've said this on, I know it's on Lijiang, it happened on King's Row as well. It's happened in a lot of different other matches. When Kurlos is good, he's good. But when he's bad, I mean, I don't even want to say that it's him being bad, but whatever is happening for the team, Kurlos is not being protected, whether that's coming from himself or the other team members. It's not happening for this team, and this is it. Every time Fireball go in, every time they get some kills, they lose equal numbers, if not more.
And they had every opportunity to win that offense as well, actually. It wasn't that they had, one great push and they failed it. Like, they had about 3 or 4, actually, where they were well favored. They flubbed them for one reason or another, overstayed, overcommitted, mucked up the engage, mucked up the setup. Things went wrong on every single one. And it's almost worse that it was a different thing each time, because then you've got like 4 or 5 things to fix rather than just one big glaring mistake.
And they had 1 more minute than Machi on top of that.
Yeah.
To me, what it looked like was Fireball were just waiting for that one amazing team fight where you EMP Machi and then you follow it up with the Death Blossom, and so much of that was shown by Apudo holding on to Death Blossom for like 80% of that second point, and he finally used it, and it was very likely just because he wanted to swap anyway, and it got nothing. He swapped on to Genji, and there was hardly enough time for him to build up a Dragon Blade. By the time he did get it, we saw it at the very end. He pulled it out when half his team was dead, and that's overtime, so of course that's going to happen, but it just felt like they were waiting for that perfect team fight. But then at other times, they were committing ults to fights that were really already lost. Now, some of it was unfortunate timing, like Titawat was using his Primal Rage and then his team gets EMP'd. Okay, that's just gonna happen sometimes. But then Sound Barrier on 3 people, because those are the only members of your team alive, those kind of mistakes are clearly going to be punished so heavily on second checkpoint for assault.
And you're never going to get that dream combo, by the way. Like, if you get it, you're going to get it once because the other team made a horrid mistake, and even then, you're probably not actually going to secure the full thing off it because the whole team is going to respawn at once if you do get a full team wipe. And even so, Machi read that like a book. Look at how they positioned the entire time on their defense. They knew how to position to make it nigh impossible for NZNR to get in position for the hack. How many times did he finally find himself on the point with absolutely no Machi members around him? They were all sort of set up off to the side on these really awkward bits of terrain. It's hard to get in the middle of them. Heck, it's hard to even spot out where the middle is, and then you still have to connect the EMP, and then you still have to get Reaper in there. Machi put themselves in the hardest possible spot to for Fireball to actually get into there, to make that combo work. It was completely read, completely countered, and Fireball kept just trying to go for it up until the last possible minute where they did swap to Genji, and it was, like you said, just too late.
And speaking of mistakes made as well, there was that one point there where you sort of mentioned Machi fell asleep, and that's when Fireball finally actually kept on through and got themselves a check, nearly got themselves that second, third as well. But you got to sort of think that was kind of what happened to Machi there, because Machi shouldn't even have let that go, and if Machi hadn't let that go, Fireball wouldn't even have had that 1/3 to work with.
I'll tell you what did happen. It was actually down to how Machi were positioning. Because they were positioning not on the point itself, because that would have actually left them susceptible to the EMP Death Blossom, they were set up on the opposite side, and Fireball were actually able to come through, and because Machi had to sort of move to react to it, the third had gone through by that point. That was what really went down there, but then Machi actually reacted to it perfectly. They won that fight anyway, and they never let it happen again. Every time Fireball tried to do a similar thing, when they did try once or twice, they were very quick to shut it down, and it was predominantly their own Sombra doing exactly that. And that was where Kiyomi was losing his life a ton of the time. Sorry, Restia. Not even Restia. What's the guy's name? Kurlos. I knew it was a K. I don't know. I got them mixed up. But that was where Kurlos was losing his life a lot of the time. And also Tidawat. So often while they were on one side, you had the Sombra Reaper doing this other thing on the other side, and it was just disjointed and disconnected, and Machi were reacting perfectly. It was completely red, and Fireball just looked silly.
And right at the end as well, we're talking about Kurlos, we talk about some of the ultimates there. Kurlos had Transcendence at the end, Rocket had the Sound Barrier at the end, but neither of the supports could commit it in time to actually save the team, which was a big disaster, especially with Kurlos being picked out so early. Speaking of picks, Machi have in fact picked their next map. It is going to be on Dorado. This is the escort, and it could be the last map of the evening for Fireball.
I feel like this is them trying to take advantage of Fireball's difficulties, if you will, on defense at Kings Row. They're kind of assuming the same will come out, because look, if you can find even just a little bit of defense, I think this favors Fireball on their offense, because their offense is very good. But if you can just stall it up, if you can burn like 30 seconds to a minute off the clock, assuming that Fireball aren't really going to be able to do the same thing, then heck, that leaves you favored.
Also, let's remember where Fireball struggled the most on Kings Row, which was the third checkpoint, that escort section of that hybrid map, right? I feel like that section is actually rather similar to the third checkpoint in Dorado as well. A lot of teams, while it's not necessary, do like to swap onto a Reinhardt once again on both attack and defense as well. There's a lot of clear lines for that Earthshatter to connect. There's a lot of different parts where, once again, there's choke points where Earthshatter can connect. Fireball, we've seen them still try it out. They're still not completely comfortable on running it on something like first point of Kings Row, but when backed into a corner, third checkpoint, sure, it'll come out a little bit late, but Machi have shown they're already bringing it out. They've already got the Reinhardt there, and Fireball are more likely reacting to that pick so that they've got something to block the Earthshatter.
Almost seems like a case of both Fireball's attack and defense at this stage look a little bit lacking on defense. They don't defend as well as Machi. Clearly, Machi get the cap on through on both Kings Row and then on Temple of Anubis as well. And then we would look at the attack phase for Fireball. They cannot cap on either Temple or Kings Row. They just fail right at the end. Very close, I would say, even on both, maybe less so in Temple of Anubis. With Temple of Anubis, they got roughly, 60-ish, maybe 55% on the cap. Good progress, but not close enough to actually secure a win out for them. Now we're going to Dorado. It's kind of looking like possibly a very similar map to Kings Row in terms of pacing as well.
I have to say, this is a really weird way to look at it, but in a sense, Temple of Anubis, to Fireball's quote-unquote credit, their defense was actually quite good, and on the offense, they weren't able to push it through. So I feel like when they did lose the defense, it was because Machi played well. When they lost the offense, it was because they played poorly. And you almost do wonder if they can play well and consistently so. If they are actually maybe the better of these two teams, at least in this particular snapshot series, but they're actually not playing completely cleanly. They're not playing at their best. They're not playing 100%. And so they are not looking the better of these two right now.
Which, by the way, on Control, on Lijiang Tower, you can get away with if you're not playing the cleanest game. Make it a little bit chaotic. Machi is trying to do the same thing as you. You do get away with it at the end of the day. Now that we're in these other game modes, like we predicted right after Lijiang Tower, can Fireball adapt to it? So far, they've had some difficulty. This will be now their last opportunity to get that done. Trying to figure out if they're attacking or defending first. Always a fun game to try and figure this one out. I'm going to say this is actually key. I didn't even manage to get it in there, but it's going to be Fireball. and a similar lineup to what they've been running on Kings Row, actually, the exact one.
Yeah, and this is kind of interesting by Machi not opting to defend first. I think part of that is they just want to kind of bust through Fireball's defense because they feel confident that they can.
Playing the Pharah into what Fireball is running is pretty fortunate for them because they predicted that the Soldier was not going to come out.
Oh.
Still though, good pick-outs to start things off.
Good pick-outs because already the pressure was actually coming on to Fireball, and now they need to be careful to not actually lose their members because a lot of their members are quite low here still. They are starting to get their tanks topped off. Fireball needs to not over-aggress here. They are going to measure it very well.
This is actually a good defensive position for Fireball. A lot of teams do decide to hold quite early, and if you're running a heavy dive composition like you are in Fireball, this is where that composition really shines. Once you get past the archway, maybe not so much, and the cart is getting towards that archway now, so for Fireball, their timing has slightly been messier. They got an early couple pickouts, but now they need to turn that into a winning team fight.
Yeah, they weren't able to get any further pickouts. Even getting good pressure onto DCR1 isn't quite enough. They're trying to close out on these healers, but Restia able to get them the slip, and Apudo finds himself in too deep, given that he didn't get the reset off the very low Restia there. Oh, Kant equally struggling as he eats up a pulse bomb, and Nona is getting aggressed upon. DCR1 struggling to break through, but they are not dying, so they will be able to keep the aggression up. Fireball, I actually think they need to change up this team comp, to be frank.
Yeah, it is getting a little bit, I want to say predictable as one thing, and kind of weak on the other side as well. Curlis might just go down here. No, has the Transcendence, but was forced to use it.
Yeah, they do actually get a kill onto Kiyomi, which is good, and they force out the sound barrier. They now have their own because they realize they need to commit to this fight, but they need to get kills through. They need to get kills through because Machi have a good run of ultimates coming out. Now they're going to commit Tito's ultimate as well, and Apudo's still not found anything. Nonas could absolutely clean house with this ultimate, which is now available as they lose Apudo as well. He's uncontested in the air here.
And that's exactly the problem with Fireball's lineup. There's no way for them to actually contest their back. Machi are extremely mobile here. They're extremely aerial. They're getting really good trades here. In fact, they've got 3.5 with just 1. Now they can make that 4.
Yeah, this is looking a bit silly, to be honest, from Fireball. I mean, they're actually hamstringing themselves. They're still not opting to change. It's like they're adamant that, hey, if we can just get our ultimates off or something like that, that it's going to magically start working. But you're already on the back foot with this team comp, and you're still not executing well enough anyway. Apudo now opening up with the ultimate, but he's not even got targets to use. He's just going to have to put it away and maybe sheepishly go and change off now, but even then he doesn't seem willing.
Still too early, Apudo feels. Unfortunately, they still can and maybe probably should turn on the aggression, maybe get the initiative to actually start the fight here.
But there it
They
goes,
lose that
gets
as well.
robbed out. They do kill Nonas at least, but they've already lost the initiative. Kant getting a good pair there, and they pick out Apudo as well. If Fireball don't change at all before the second point Cat goes through, it is going to be all their fault.
There it is. So Apudo, good counter, now knows that he has to get Nonas. Unfortunately, Nonas, he says, I've just read you like a book. You're going to change the Soldier now, and I'm going to change off Pharah now. So let's have a duel, a gentleman's Soldier duel.
And I bet Apudo's going to come out of the gate absolutely kicking himself now, but nothing to be done. They've already given up some of the better defensive spots. They kind of had to defend further back now and force Machi back off the high ground that in a way should rightfully belong to Fireball. And in all this, the payload has gone largely uncontested up till now. The
Absolutely.
fight is going to be committed.
Machi have had a decent amount of progress with this. Apudo now sitting himself in the back line. Getting DCR1 early is going to help, and he has to have dual
commit. Wow, no, Kant just going to clean up Apudo, so never mind all that. That was a really awkward commit, actually. To be frank, by both teams, and Fireball did get, I think, a lot more return kills than Machi really should have allowed them, but, I mean, Machi were in the driver's seat of that fight through and through.
Only one member really remains on this defense. It's Incident on 1. He's not even contesting. Fireball waiting for respawn scare. And the cart is still chugging on through now. The respawns arrive. Ninth should go for the contest. Yes, he does.
Yeah, he will buy time for the team to come back out, but already losing NZ and R. They aren't actually in position. They're not getting return kills. They're just kind of going onto the cart itself. Committing a sound barrier may just give them enough space to fight something. Catching DCR1 is very big for them. Good moves by Ninth there. They're forcing Kant back. They may have actually just barely kind of found that one, and I think Machi were maybe taken a bit by surprise, weren't even expecting Fireball to close out kills.
Yeah, a little bit, because Incident going down early should have been for Machi's advantage there, and I kind of was a bit surprised by the way Fireball held that one out. Kind of glad they did, though. They need a little bit of breathing space. 2 minutes now, or just under 2 minutes now remaining for Machi. They have attack Pfizer going to this next push. Fireball sitting on absolutely nothing. They're going to struggle.
Yeah. It's really been the mantra of this game so far, hasn't it? I mean, Fireball haven't really done themselves any favors. First in the team comp and then the timing of the swaps. If they can catch DCR1 here, that would be a good start, but I mean, they do at least force out the ultimate. Good movement by NZNR, but he's actually in a bit of spot of trouble, so he's going to have to back off. The catch can, and now he's the open up. Now Nonez catches NZNR on the side, no pulse bomb to connect, and Nonez one-man armying his way through this point. Fireball can stall this one out, and maybe that'll be enough to at least run down the clock for a bit, but it's not looking good for them in this last fight.
And eventually TDL1 does go down as well. Tag Visor from Apudo, he wants to get a bit of an answer. Kulos actually has Transcendence, so what? That's interesting.
How many times has that happened as well, that actually Kurlos hasn't committed the Transcendence when it really could have saved teammates, and now they're not actually going to trickle onto this point, and I think that is good. They ran that down actually quite a long way, so they did at least get something for that, because it looked like the payload was going to go unopposed.
There is a bit of momentum coming through from Machi, which is important to look at. Kent has a Dragon Blade. That could secure them a fight when in a situation where, once again, Fireball are barely sitting on ults. Kurlos will have that opportunity to finally commit that Transcendence if that does go down, but we're not even going to get a fight because Fireball get a couple of early pickouts that does slow down and prevent Machi from actually getting that snowball on through. So, once more, breathing space for Fireball, but that's all they're going to get.
Yeah, those pickouts were absolutely necessary, but yeah, all they're going to get, because they don't actually have ultimates charged up, and getting picks doesn't really give you an opportunity to charge ultimates either.
It just gets a couple of members some charge, but it's not a total team fight win. This is an interesting commit actually out of a little bit of a duel from Kent and Inzanoa. Both players unfortunately just going to have to back off there. Both teams now sitting on Transcendence. I expect Machi to keep on pushing through.
And now this is the aggression out of Kent because they've already picked off NZNR. They know it can't really go that well answered. Nonez is still sitting on the back line with this tactical visor, so they're just going to go ahead and push this one through. Apudo got one trade back, but it's probably not going to be enough here. They pick out Ninth, who was out of the mech. Apudo trades back onto Nonez as well. They are trying to get the aggression on, but they're kind of doing it with this skeleton crew here. NZNR is out of the gate now. Kurlos committed his Transcendence somewhere in that as well, and actually could have opted to hold it for this final fight. They needed to draw ultimates out.
Well, that's the thing, is he used it as soon as the Dragon Blade came out, which I kind of commend him for, because Fireball needed to be able to save that fight. They didn't end up saving anything, which is unfortunate. Now the ultimate's finally gone online for Fireball.
That was really odd. Ninth in far too early. Didn't wait for the respawns, and that means Apudo is completely exposed with his tactical visor. That's why he got picked out. Now Kant kind of has free reign over this one. NZNR's Pulse Bomb finds nothing. That was the last tool they had at their disposal, and Fireball just handed that one to Machi.
Or even the final boop out at the end. Ninth couldn't even touch the card in time. Had he touched the card in time, maybe a little bit of extra stall out from Fireball, they probably wouldn't have prevented the cap over, but they would have at least bought themselves time on the clock, and time on the clock would have been important if they want to take this a time bank, and they're going to have to, but if history repeats itself, they're not even going to make it there.
That was a really unfortunate commit. I mean, I can understand Ninth kind of throwing his body at the point on the second point defense, but there it was completely unnecessary. The card wasn't through yet. The respawns were just about to come through. Ninth just went in too early. It was that simple. And by the time he had got in, he was dead because he was the only target to shoot at, and the team just didn't even have the Diva at their disposal. They didn't have any of those tools. I don't know. They threw that one away. They absolutely threw that one away.
Which, kind of like you said, you know, a bit of a mantra of the entire evening for Fireball is some good opportunities there. Unfortunately, some thrown away opportunities also, and Machi are capitalizing every single part of that way.
Fireball's lackings defensively are causing them massive issues here. Best case scenario is they now cap through on their offense. It's not out of the question, certainly, but they have had a hard time breaking Machi's defenses. Absolutely,
and like I said, history repeating itself would say that we're not even going to go to Time Bank. Time Bank is the most that Fireball can sort of hope for here now. A change-up, because, look, you even said partway through that that offense from Machi, Apudo eventually needed to go into the Soldier there. Unfortunately, by the time he did, Nonez also said, I'm now going to hop off the Pharah. But what it does say, to Fireball's credit, is they're willing to make those changes. And in fact, they did that on Temple of Anubis as well. They said, we're not actually going to run the Reaper anymore. Time to go back onto the Genji. Just a little bit too late. It is starting to get a little bit more timely, though.
By the way, just towards the end there, and now they're running in on the defense as well. Machi did actually swap over to triple DPS.
Yeah, with Ristia on the Soldier again, so the second time we're seeing this tonight, it is one of the sort of lineups they like to go with. They don't, I guess they value Kiyomi's Ana play enough that they would rather keep him on the Ana rather than the Soldier.
Yeah, and I don't actually disagree with that, and I also just think you get more synergy out of that ultimate, out of the nano boost with the multiple DPS options at this point in time, and you can commit it to DCR1 as well. I think if you're just going to go for this out-and-out aggressive style with triple DPS, that does serve you in better stead.
Yeah, so we thought, we said Fireball were pretty aggressive on the defense. It actually looks like Machi, on some level, are even more aggressive with the triple DPS. Now, this is a very combustible lineup. You can either explode the other team or your own lineup will explode. And so far, they're getting enough pickouts that it is working in favor of them. Eventually, though, you have to be concerned, are they going to be able to keep this going for any time longer? Yeah, combustible, but guess which of these two balls is currently on fire? And they pick up Tita White, and for that one, they'd already actually got Rocket right at the start of it, so they're really kind of struggling to get this one even out of the gate here. Fireball, they absolutely must break through. They absolutely do, but already enough ultimates from Machi should be able to prevent that. I mean, we talk about Nano Visor being one of the big options here for them. Machi have that now. Sleep Dart goes into a bubble. That's a little bit unfortunate.
And they don't actually connect the anti-heal as well. The pick onto Nonez is good for Rapudo. They have to commit this Nano Boost now onto Restia in with the Visor, but he's got no targets really. All he found was Tita One off the back end. They do close on Kurlos, but Fireball have started to open this one out, able to close out on Restia as well. We'll be able to get the payload underway. And they've actually swapped it onto triple DPS themselves.
There you go. So that's what happens. You play a little bit too close to fire, your lineup does eventually blow up. We were waiting to see that from Machi. In fact, we're waiting to see when Fireball we're going to be able to punish what Machi were doing. Very close hold, triple DPS, not a lot of health there. They do get past, and now Fireball got a bit of momentum, got a little bit of wind behind their sails. Machi on the back foot here, but they will contest.
They absolutely will. I want to see Apudo open this up with the Dragon Blade, and he's hunting for it too. And this can go so great against triple DPS. It's already starting to happen, but he's spending too much time taking out one member. It does at least work for them because luckily for him, Ninth was kind of holding down the fort, and Nonez didn't quite get as much mileage. So they look poised to get this cap through. There's only one member here really contesting it still, and that is Resty. Finally gets picked. Now Cannon's going to try and duck and weave in and out. Fireball will get the cap through.
Triple DPS versus triple DPS.
What a treat.
Is this a sight for sore eyes? I mean, it's kind of crazy because either team can just really get a ton of mileage here because there's so much damage flying through from both sides here. A lot of ultimates as well. I really feel sorry for both tanks because,
yeah,
I mean, they're going to have a bad time.
You can't live for all that long, and I suppose it's maybe going to come down to who is able to live for a few seconds longer than the other. Certainly makes for exciting Overwatch.
Yeah, it certainly does, if not chaotic Overwatch. A little bit hard to read, but it is very exciting to go through.
Cat
That's going to be the first casualty.
And ends it in our double pulse bomb. That's how long the tank will live. Not very long at all. Kurlos is the trade back, but Fireball at the payload underway. They're looking to get even more out of this as they actually force Restia miles away, and they keep on his back as well. No retreat for him, no rest for the Wicked. The payload continues moving.
Yeah, so decent now time coming on through for this offense, and still a little bit of decent spawn control as well that we saw from Tita Watt.
Pick on No Talk.
There it is.
Yeah, the spawn control indeed. Tita Watt and NZNR both are going very aggressive onto these healers, and it's actually working because without that, it's really hard for this triple DPS to get much mileage. Who is in your sights, might I ask, good friend? It seems to be Tita Watt with that ultimate running, and he's got a Transcendence on him, so unfortunately nothing found for Restia. They are able to at least keep the team alive, and No Talk will have his Transcendence in a moment here. They pick Kurlos out, and all they've really got in response has been the mech out of Nonez. They've swapped back off this triple DPS now, and Fireball still committing to it. They're starting to close the kills through. They need to get a few more to get the payload moving.
They do, and another Transcendence now being committed out of Kiyomi. This is starting to look like a bit of desperation out of Machi.
Sound barrier.
They don't have enough members of sound barrier.
There we go.
Does look a little bit better on top.
And that's the beginning of the closeout. DCR1 will be able to stall for quite a while with this ultimate running, but again, it's triple DPS. They've got enough damage to actually deal with it anyway, so he could just lose his life here, which would be even more heartbreaking. Kiyomi's actually back into position to keep him topped off, but still, Machi do feel like they're trickling in. Apudo's going to be able to open up with the Dragon Blade, and he knows he doesn't need to deal with DCR1 and Nonez. They've already been dealt to. The unfortunate committal of a nano boost onto the soon-to-be dead Nonez there as well. He wasn't dead when it was committed, but he was dead straight after. They ran down a chunk of the clock, but Fireball actually have more time than Machi for this third point.
Absolutely, but this does look like Temple and Anubis again. The last time we said, look, Fireball got more time than Machi. It didn't go so well for them, so
Yeah.
this time around, Machi going to swap off that triple DPS. Kant's going to go onto the hog. This was a winning formula
Triple tank,
onto
boys.
King's Row. It is. It's a big sort of change up for Machi coming into this. Rich here is still going to be on the soldier. That's very interesting, but I like to think they can make it work.
The triple tank is to sort of hamstring Aputo's Genji a little bit, but Ninth is still on the soldier there. I don't know, this is... Excuse me, this is very interesting. Already they got the mech, they got Kant as well. Unfortunately, losing Aputo, they won't be able to get the cap off this, or maybe they will actually if all they lost is Aputo. Colonel's going to rejoin. My goodness, they're able to do it. They're getting the momentum. Now they pick DCR1, looking to spawn camp. They've caught the healers. The payload's underway. Oh my goodness.
Yikes, I mean, Machi, wow, what happened there? No ultimates, no nothing, not
They
even
got to fight out the gate.
faster.
Who's there? He just barely
damage.
touches it, but he's down before he touches it. No one else even got there. Shiver me timbers, boys. They did it, and they've got 2 minutes in the bank.
Ahoy, matey. That's all I got to say to that. Here's the thing. Wow, Machi right at the end, because they changed to the triple tank lineup, they actually reset a bunch of the ultimates, so any sort of defensive momentum they had kind of got nullified. And for Fireball as well, they used a bunch of their ultimates on the second cap to actually cap through, so they had nothing to really go off of. What really worked for Fireball was the pick outs through that third cap, and they only lost Aputo. Because they only lost Aputo, no one else, they just pushed on through with ease, and they got a full team wipe, started to spawn cap. That was actually really well played by Fireball. So while they struggle on the attacks for the other 2 maps, this has been looking good.
And they only struggled on the very first bit of attack as well, where they were up against triple DPS with their 2-2-2. They started to break that and then swapped onto a triple DPS of their own, and that seemed nigh unstoppable. So heck, maybe Fireball, I feel like after that, they were all looking at each other going like, guys, triple DPS was great. Let's just keep running that.
Why not? And if you're on the Machi side, you're saying, okay, this isn't working, we need to go something else. Let's go the complete opposite of triple DPS, which is triple tank. And the awkward thing for Machi is you're not actually playing your best soldier player on that soldier role. You're playing your support player on the soldier, which kind of works, but it's never going to be as good as your primary soldier player.
They're doing it.
And yeah, you're right.
They're sticking to triple
That's
DPS.
exactly what's happening for Fireball.
And now, I mean, look, Machi, they may be going like, yeah, sure, we were able to kind of deal with their dive on the defense, but we couldn't do anything about their triple DPS no matter what. They've got a whole minute here. Fireball, how quickly can they stop up Machi once this minute is through?
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting. Machi had... Well, that's a good start.
That is a very good start, and that is the volatility of triple DPS. One of those DPS is now off the table. It's a very tricky 5-6, but they actually do get the response. They're able to take out Machi. They route out Canton Nunez on the side. They're forced way off the fight there. They don't quite convert the kills, but that gives Fireball the room to breathe and forces Machi to stop moving the payload for a moment.
It does, and that's really painful for Machi because they barely had any time to work with the start. 20 seconds now, and that car's not even under the archway. We're going to head into overtime before we're even close to that first cap, actual finish line.
Kant barely able to recall in time there, and this time he doesn't have it as Aputo closes it out. Nona's trying to go aggressive onto the side here, but he's struggling. He gets picked by Tito-Watt. Good lockdown there. They finally close out Aputo, but the rest of the DPS is doing work. Ninth is powered up. He's going to get in there. He's going to get all the way through the sound barrier if he can so help it. Good dive in by DCR1, but it may be just a tad too deep, and now he's trying to get people in his sights too. Ninth, the man's looking to get it all himself there. Gets onto the point, gets Restia. Who's even here to keep this payload alive? It seems to only be DCR1, and there's not really many members to keep him there as well. They are able to keep the payload moving for now. The respawn's kind of coming through, but they won't be able to get too much distance off this, I feel.
Something you got to remember is the spawns do favor Machi here. Every single kill against Fireball sends them way, way, way back. When you kill Machi here, yeah, you lose a bit of time, but what you reinforce extremely quickly. So here we go. Final opportunity.
They do have a good stall tool in Tito-Watt's ultimate, but here's Nunez with his ultimate. Oh, he gets shut down by Aputo, who wants to now shut down this whole team, and it looks like it's working. It's only really the tanks and the one healer. Kiyomi did at least have that transcendence, but no talk is way out to the side. DCR1 is out, and that fall apart is a great way to put it. The overtime vanishes into thin air, and Fireball, well, that's how far they let Machi get in a minute, and now they have 3 of their own.
Man, this could very likely go to a map 5. I can see and smell Fireball's victory from here. It is...
It's burning, yeah, that burning smell, that's Fireball's victory.
Yeah.
This is...
Buy it now in stores. The new aroma.
This is a joy so far. This is...
It's back and forth, isn't it?
yeah, to say the least. And I felt actually Time Bank favored Machi over Fireball because Time Bank is very defense-centric. A lot of teams actually flub the defense even when they're good normally on non-Time Bank defense because you have to play it very differently. But actually Fireball played that incredibly well.
They did, and what they did there, which was good, was they kind of did what you said, which was, hey, triple DPS was not bad, guys. Why not stick on it a bit more? Ninth did a fantastic job in Soldier. He got a couple of kills in the middle there in the archway, and for all of the advantages that Machi had, which is, you know, the fact that your spawns are actually better during those opening phases, Machi still barely got the distance in it. They went to overtime fairly quickly. By the time the cart really went through the archway, you were already in that overtime, and it was just a matter of time before Fireball actually came on through. The big kill was Apudo with the Dragon Blade, killing Nones during his Dragon Blade. I think that's what really swung it.
Big ask now for Machi. A bit of an interesting read here by Fireball. They're going to come out the gate with this Pharah, but this is still a triple DPS.
Yep, it is. It's going to be a Pharah versus a Soldier, so NZ9 might just feel the hurt.
He is absolutely feeling the hurt already, so he's going to back off. They didn't really get much for it. Payload's underway at least, trying to get the pressure down. NZ9 having a real hard time with this one. May want to swap off if they don't get much progress now, but they're starting to get it. The good pressure is there on some no talk. He's going to have to either go back or lose the mech, and now NZ9 can start committing a little bit further forward.
Actually did a really great job of staying alive there, so it is now going to force Machi into an awkward position where they committed onto a player, didn't really get that kill, and they actually lose a player of their own.
They unfortunately do lose Canton. Nones isn't really able to find an ideal position. They do trade back onto Kurlos. Good work by them, but they're not really contesting the back. Yeah, they're not really contesting the backside. Look at the space being made. DCR1 was forced back. They're finally able to close onto NZ&R as well. Unfortunately, Payload not quite getting through the archway is not ideal for Fireball, but they did get a good bit of distance. They've still got a good bit of time. I would like to see them change off the Pharah. They're not going to. Now starting to lose a little bit of time here.
Yeah, well, you know, spawns here do favor Fireball, so for no talk, he's got to take a little bit of time to come back from that respawn. It is going to slow Machi down. It's going to slow the defense down in the sense that they can no longer hold close. They're going to pull their entire defense now back to what I would say kind of, I was going to say further back than that, but they're actually still holding decently close.
I think part of this is just to try and take Fireball by surprise as they come around this corner. Hasn't quite worked. Rocket Barrage is now available. They've forced the ultimate out of DCR1 and out of Nones. He does get a good lot of mileage for it, but it's only the two healers. Fireball could still opt to commit further if they want. Unfortunately, Tita committed his ultimate as well. Apudo loses his life. They need to back off now.
Yeah, with not a lot of time left now, under 1 minute. This is still better than what Machi had so far. They've worked with a decent amount more time. They got a decent amount more ultimates as well. So for Fireball, it's going to be the one last push to get them through. And with this number of ultimates, I would say they can do it.
This is still very doable, you're right, for Fireball, and a very hard ask for Machi. Here's the early commit. They catch Nones. The trade is back onto NZ&R. That's the sound barrier out for both teams. And Apudo, he sees his mark. He goes in deep. He gets put to sleep. He doesn't quite lose his life for it, but now Candace able to train him down. They're trying to answer back on the DCR1, but they just can't quite find him. And now Rocket's routed back. They need to back off now. They may just be able to beeline for the cart, or maybe they won't. Maybe they've lost it.
5 seconds left. I might have spoken way too soon. There's so many more ultimates, but they can't even touch the last player on there. Who's alive?
No one's there. They're just stalling for time now as Apudo is back out the gate, but they don't have a Tracer to do this. They don't have anyone else to stall it out. They don't do it. How can you not let that work for yourself, Fireball? I think it all went pear-shaped with the Pharah commit. They stuck on it for a very long time. They were convinced the Rocket Barrage would get it through for them. It got one good kill, but that was all it got. And Machi, very patient, very skilled to hold out through that entire 3 minutes with no margin for error.
And they had so little ultimates to use as well. I mean, it was just a tough situation. Look, you play against a Rocket Barrage, you lose a member, you shut down NZ&R, fine, that's pretty good. Then Apudo comes on through an amazing sleep dart coming out from Kiyomi. We've said already, this guy is a phenomenal Ana player, and that is exactly why. Sleep darting Apudo in the middle of that was, I would say, the straw that broke the camel's back for Fireball.
And like I said, I was actually really disappointed by the Pharah there. I mean, there wasn't any need for it, actually. They could have just run the exact thing they'd run before. The normal triple DPS actually does better than running it with the Pharah in the first place. It doesn't, particularly counter out anything. And if anything, Machi were built to kind of deal with it as well. We saw how much NZ&R struggled to just get chip damage in. That isn't a struggle that a Tracer would have had. A Tracer would have also been able to stall the point better. A Tracer wouldn't have had to worry about getting the ultimate eaten up entirely by a Diva. and they had 3 minutes to change off it. They didn't. They stuck with it. I think it was a bad call, and I think it is entirely what lost them that time bank.
Well, there it is. Machi 3-1. Fireball had such a great start on Lijiang, and it was a great start that was hard fought as well. Don't forget, that was a 3-2 victory for Fireball, even just on that one map. We said this was going to be a close series. It has felt like a close series overall, but at the end of the day, Machi get it over the line. Fireball, they do not.
Bit of a shame as well, because it could have been such a good victory for Fireball to really give them the opportunity to actually move up the leaderboard. For a lot of teams, they're kind of locked out of moving up the ladder right now with the amount of games left in the round robin. It would have been Fireball's shot to overtake either Hong Kong Attitude or Machi, but after that loss, you've got to say that was really their best shot at getting a win outside of the two Japanese teams.
Machi will be happy to pick that one up as well, very much so. They'll be a little bit worried, I think, because it wasn't as clean as they would have liked, but certainly Fireball are still a team that actually deserves a modicum of respect, and if nothing else, teams like Machi and Hong Kong Attitude will be giving it to them in droves in future. But yeah, it would have been heartbreaking for Machi because, like I said a little bit earlier, the day began with them being mathematically eliminated from playoffs in a game that they weren't even playing, just by sheer merit of blank winning against AHQ at the start of the day. Machi were bumped out. Then they lost to blank directly, losing again to Fireball after that. You know, it would have been like you come home, your house burned down, your dog gets shot by a cop, and your wife hands you divorce papers just to top it all off. That's what that day would have been like for Machi. Luckily, they still have their wife.
And make no mistake though, Bo, if Fireball had beat Machi, that would have been an upset in general because
they would have stolen Machi's wife.
Fireball came in as the underdogs for sure, and I think their performance was actually very kind of. I would say I was impressed with the way Fireball played at the end of the day, despite not getting that win. And the fact that we're kind of sitting here thinking like Fireball maybe could have gotten that win there, Fireball had the opportunity to.
Certainly maybe went to the game.
Says a lot about how far Fireball have actually come. It says a lot about how Fireball are playing now, because previously, if this was round robin 3 and we're like Machi versus Fireball, yeah, I don't think Fireball was going to get this.
We would have gone, yeah, this will be really entertaining. Fireball are always a fun team to watch, but Machi are going to win this. And I don't think we're ever going to say that ever again. I mean, we already thought that, yeah, look, this could be one that Fireball kind of push it through on because they have been on an upswing lately. They have very much been improving. So, yeah, this is just making Fireball matches all the more entertaining.
This is the first time we're sort of looking at Fireball and we're like, hey, they might actually beat Machi here. It might actually happen.
Which is actually really funny to think from way back in the first round robin when Machi had already beaten, Fireball had already beaten out Machi. So pretty surprising. But hey, look, Nonez, player of the game.
Yep, and it will be on the Reaper as well. So I think that was specifically for his performance on Temple of Anubis. And that would have been Machi's attack as well. It was one of the factors that led to Machi's victory, specifically on Temple of Anubis. On that attack, it was something that Apudo failed to pull off himself when they attacked.
I've also got to commend Nonez for every other aspect of his play during the entire series, right? When you match them up, Apudo to Nonez just got way more consistent results. Yeah, Apudo occasionally came out with the flashy 4 or 5 kills, but Nonez was consistently there, consistently on the soldier, who, by the way, is, I'm going to use the word again, a more consistent hero than Genji, and I'd say that just played out way more in favor for Machi, having Nonez on that hero.
And really, at the end of the day, you know, we looked at the entire series as a whole and we said, look, Control, it was a Fireball game because they could keep it chaotic, they could keep it sort of very aggressive. Then we move on to the other game modes, we got to be a bit more calculated, and that's where Fireball missed out on at the end of the day for a lot of the reasons you actually stated, Pixie, which came down to, look, what are your picks looking like? What are they doing? What are you trying to achieve with this? And what are the other team also picking it, and how you're applying yourself against that? And at the end of the day, everything on paper, unfortunately, Fireball, they couldn't get it done because, you know, the mistakes, also the decision making, and not just individual, but on a macro level as a team.
And there's the thing, it was such an emotional roller coaster because of that. We actually did kind of doubt them coming into Dorado because of how King's Row had gone. And because they also weren't able to get it over the line in Temple of Anubis, which we felt may have gone their way just on paper before that. And then suddenly Dorado, they had, you know, this 3-minute time bank, and they actually got a really good defense. And we were like, okay, cool, this is looking a bit different. And then they just did themselves no favors. Like, after setting themselves up beautifully to actually get it through. They then kind of undid their own work with the Pharah pick, and it's just this constant like, what's going to happen next? A Fireball going to look great? Are they going to make a huge, costly mistake? I have no idea, but I've got a big grin on my face the whole time at least.
And it's kind of like Temple of Anubis, right? Because on Temple of Anubis, they're like, okay, they're coming into this extra minute. They've done better than Machi so far on the attack, and then suddenly
it was the exact same.
Suddenly it just kind of went down.
And it did feel like they were just waiting for, again, a bit more of a perfect team fight where they had the good ultimate set up. They were waiting for a moment for NZNR to get out a good barrage, but he was just constantly under threat because, again, Nonez on Soldier was just keeping him out of the sky. And if they didn't already have their Winston jumping on top of Nonez, keeping him locked down, keeping him harassed, and most importantly, keeping the barrier around him, then NZNR had no space to move up in the sky at all.
And because you are running NZNR on Pharah and not Tracer, you don't have a Tracer to go and harass him and create that space. I think actually maybe it could have worked if Aputo had been on Tracer and not Genji, because they did also have the Soldier. Or if they'd maybe gone for a Genji Tracer Pharah. Look, maybe there was some other combination of things that worked there, but like, if you pick even just the one combination of Pharah triple DPS that isn't going to work, then I mean that's just as bad as picking Pharah in the first place when maybe it shouldn't have fit into that particular triple DPS. And like I said, no change when their spawn was closer and they had all the time to do it. I don't want to harp on it too much, but it really sucks to see them not quite make it because of their own mistake.
Well, we are going to get an interview now with the winners. It is going to be with Machi and it is going to be with Nonez.
今天你用了死神拿下了 MVP， 但在这之前呢，想要先问问你，在控制地图发生了什么事情？
在第一张地图的话，我发现我们那个失误太多了。我们个人的那个走位被抓到，然后就
So we lost a lot of members early, picked
然
out.
后我们配套上也有一些失误，对。
哦，原来是这样的，帮大家解答了心中的疑惑啦。那其实你这一场比赛就是用死神嘛？你自己之前有在专精练死神这个角色吗？你对这个角色的看法是怎么样？跟大家分享一下。
How do you view Reaper right now?
我以前的话有在快速场拿过死神，但是我不会很常玩，因为
So I've played a bit on the
他走
ladder,
太慢了，我不想玩。
不好用。
but I don't really play much Reaper now because I think he moves too
正
slow.
题就是地图的问题可以再拿出来这样用。
是
But we
那改
may
版
bring it
中的
out
死神你有什么
specifically
看法？你
for
有什么
some
期待？
maps. So how do you view
改
him
版
as a
之后的
hero?
死神可能还有蛮有机会拿出来用的，因为现
I
在
think there are still
现在讲话
plenty
也
of
不太稳
opportunities that we might bring it
对
out.
你自己本身使用的角色有原氏还有士兵76嘛？你自己比较喜欢哪一个？
So you use
我比较
Genji
喜欢
and
原始。
Soldier? Who do you use?
因
I like
为他比较
Genji.
自由，他可以乱跑，然后去
He's a very
射人
independent
射射
hero.
标
谢谢。
He
对
doesn't
然后
really
再
need to
回来
rely too much on the team.
那
He can
身
do
为一
his
个
own
输
thing.
出手，自己会不会想要尝试练一下闪光？
So do you think you should
闪光
practice Tracer?
我一直都有在玩，
So I have been practicing
然后
Tracer.
在平常打 rank 或者是快速的时候都有在做
When
使
I'm
用。
playing ranked,
未来会再
I
多
do
就是
practice a
练
lot
练
of
闪
Tracer.
光这部分吗？
未来我觉得闪光应该不用再多练了，因为那个 Kent
I probably don't
没
need
有
to
我
play
强
too much Tracer at the moment because
我
Kent
又
is
是
mainly
直接
playing
开
that.
枪 Ken 在哪里？哎，Ken 记住，他说你的闪光没有他强，是这样子吗？
对啊，他怎么可
Are
能比
you
我
maybe
强？
saying that
好，
Kent's
这个你们
Tracer?
自己私下
Are you
的
maybe
恩
saying
怨
you
大家
could
自己去
potentially have a
解
bit
决
of
一下
Tracer?
好，谢谢 Nas 接受我们的赛后访问。那这场比赛呢，再次恭喜
It's
MVP
gonna
拿下来
be
了。接下
The
来的比赛
interview
呢是
from Nonez as
由
well, so a couple of interesting thoughts in there.
Yeah, I'd actually be quite curious to catch up with Machi on the couch after this if we get a chance to, because I really want to get a detailed rundown of their thoughts
Alright,
based
so
on
here
how
we go.
today went.
We're going to have Restia and Knight
我是 Eric。
and Eric, the manager of
很开
Fireball.
心可以邀请到两位来参加我们的这个访问哦。那这边其实问题也都是蛮简单的一些啦。那先问这个 90H 这边好了，就是说，毕竟这个 Machi 跟 Fireball 已经算是对上了非常非常多场了嘛，对不对？那他彼此对，就是他这边对 Machi 这边有没有什么感想呢，或者什么之类的，想跟大家分享
People are wondering that, since this is not the first time that we are facing Machi, so do you have anything that you want to say about them?
Machi is very good teamwork, and we need more practice. We still practice every day hard. Yeah, we need to grow up.
他说就是Machi 他们表现得很好，然后他们的团队上面的配合啊什么的都做得很好。那我们的部分的话，可能就是需要多练习这样。对，那我们每天都会很努力的练习。
每天都很努力。
对对对。
那同样的问题来到 Restia 这
So
边呢。
Restia, how do you feel
我觉
about
得就
Fireball so
是
far?
Fireball 给我整体就是那个气氛都很好的感觉，然后他们的那个双输出 NGN 哈跟 Obito 也是非常。
So Fireball have a really good attitude, and I feel like
里面最强的原石。
Incident, and Obito are some of the best players I've played against. And I think Obito is the best Genji in the tournament.
我觉得就是
better than Blank's Genji.
像那个 9TS 讲的，他们就是需要更多练习，他们绝对就是。
And I think I agree with 98.
我们绝对不能大意。
With some good practice on their side, that could be a really good
相信
team.
今天你们有新的选手上场之后呢，我觉得应该很多人都有我现在心中的这个疑问啊，就是说今天换了他之后，你觉得整体的感觉是有提升的吗？还是说跟之前其实差不多呢？
They're wondering that, because Titawat is the new member in the team. So how do you feel about Titawat joining us, and for the whole game today? Do you think it improved a lot, or do you think we need to work harder?
Work harder. Better choice.
对他就是说，就是我们还有很多需要加强的，
还蛮累的。
对，因为其实我们这个新队员他也是刚刚才到，那我们其实也就只有1天的时间可以就是去撮合这样，所以我们对
只有1天的时间，所以其实你们之间其实根本都没有什么团练啊或什么之类的。
其实就是对，因为大家刚来，所以我们还有很多，就像他刚刚说，就是很多地方都还需要再磨合。
So we'll still need in a lot of areas to get that synergy up together with the new member.
接下来是有一个问题想要问你的，就是说这个，就是其实今天呢一整天的比赛下来，我听到阿森讲到都是阿森讲了大概快87遍了，就说他觉得现在是一个选手一个队伍的闪光的这个使用者的强度，就代表了一个队伍的高度啊。
Tracer is really defining of a team's level right now.
闪光发挥好像没有来的这么的顺畅。
SN was saying maybe your Tracer
会有一个怎么样子的调整吗？或者
hasn't been up to scratch with some of the other teams.
就像球 Z 或跟阿森讲，就是现在闪光就是这个版本 meta 就是非常强的一个角色。
So right now, Tracer is the most important hero.
强度代表主要是在于说，闪光会玩的闪光的2个队伍，他们会互相去拉扯空间，就是他们可能都会互相对峙。那如果对峙输的那一方，他们就会有弱势；那对峙强的那一方，他们就可以直接去碰你的坦克。
The best sort of teams are practicing the Tracers a lot, and Tracer right now can really do a lot.
我觉得看的闪光是玩的非常好的。那像
So Kent's Tracer right now is good,
刚练不久嘛，所以我
but he hasn't been practicing for very long.
练起来，然后就是变得更强，然后就是跟现在这些顶级闪光选手。
So right now, Tracer for Kent, he can still improve by a lot.
有一个问题想要问，就 TH 这边哦，就是说，听说他之前是一个饶舌歌手嘛，对不对？那这边就是我有一个好奇的点，就是他是怎么从一个饶舌歌手变成一个 Overwatch 的职业选手？他是怎么接触这款游戏的呢
？Because they know that you're a professional rapper before, and how did you become a professional rapper to a professional, Overwatch player?
It's like my both hobby from like 15 years ago. Yeah.
他说，因为那是他以前的就是兴趣，这样。
以前的兴趣。
Songs.
玩游戏。对，玩游戏，然后唱歌这些，对他的兴趣。
就是因为是他的兴趣的关系，然后他就平常接触之后，就时间长了之后，就间接的就变成了一个职业选手了，也是蛮有趣的一个经历啦。对，那我们今天的这个采访也就差不多告一个段落。那谢谢你们2位。
So there it is, some thoughts from Ninth and also from Restia. Really interesting ones too. I didn't know Ninth was a professional rapper.
And
the thing is, like, he does gotta give off that vibe. And someone else from a different team said, I really like the way Ninth looks because he gives off that hip hop feel.
The only thing is, I'm pretty sure it's him actually. One of them wears these really big round glasses normally, and I think that's him. He doesn't look much like a rapper when he's wearing the glasses.
I don't know. I've seen. No, you can pull it off. I'm so sure you can pull it off.
I think we're not going to get any concrete proof until he proves it. I think probably one of the last days on the couch, he'll probably get asked to give us an example.
With any luck.
I hope that day does come.
Well, with any luck, we will find out as well. We're going to wait and find out what happens between Detonator Gold and Hong Kong Attitude, and they're going to be getting ready to head up on stage for their match pretty soon as well. That's what we've got to look forward to pretty soon when we come back, and that's going to happen after this break.